so elusive. There's a handful of world champions when we have people being greedy, like our co-commentator.
Live.
And scooping up all those championships, you know. It's an elusive title and one you can brag about. It's the ultimate bragging rights.
Yeah, for the rest of your career. Yeah, it should be really exciting. A lot of Pokemon coming out here, and the format of this tournament is just a little bit different from some of our past tournaments. If you were watching the International Championship stream, it's going to be pretty similar to that with a couple of minor differences. A lot of Pokemon coming out here, and the format of really excited to watch how these players adapt to that. Of course, we are doing the Day 1 Swiss today. Today is Day 1, Friday. Players with an X2 record, so at least 5 wins, will advance to Day 2. And on that Day 2, the interesting part here that's different from the International Championships is that's an entirely new tournament.
Records reset.
Records reset. All you have to do is get to 5 wins today. You make it into Day 2. You don't have to worry about any extra losses coming out from today impacting your record on Day 2 because records are entirely reset.
Yes, and that's the big thing is coming into that new tournament, it's arguably a harder tournament. You take those cream of the crop players from around the world.
Like the top 8, top 16.
Yes, yeah, absolutely top tier players. They've been coming out here, they know what to do. They have a day to almost relax, enjoy that beach, and settle in and kind of take an assessment of what's going on.
Scout the competition.
Figure it out, and maybe make an informed decision on that. But overall, those players tomorrow are going to be coming in ready. But the players coming in from Day 1 are running hot. You don't want to get in the way of that. You really struggle, I think, when a player's doing so well to just pick up and stop.
The dream is to go 5-0 in Day 1 and not have any losses and just keep that momentum going. You still get to relax a little bit. You don't have to play those final 2 rounds, but you can just keep rolling on through to Day 2, through the bracket, and finals on Sunday. And, we've talked a lot. You've talked a little bit more than me, but it's time to get into the battle. Like, this is the Pokemon World Championships. It's round 1 of Swiss, and we have our defending world champion here in Day 1. Did not make it to Day 2, was not able to get enough championship points to qualify for Day 2 outright. So all these players in Day 1 are going to have to run through Wolf Click, our defending world champion. And the first person up to try to do so is Estefan Valdebenito.
Yes, well, kind of picking up where we left off at the last World Championships, of course. Wolf standing at the end with his win that he'd been looking for years. And to finally get it, of course, fantastic. But he's got to come back.
It's entirely new year. It's entirely new game.
Oh, it's so different, and it's interesting to see how players.
Puro torneo de flinches en Mundial.
From Chile, they've had a slightly different structure throughout the year. And their players play the game a little differently in comparison to, say, North American or European players. So no game is going to be easy here.
Absolutely, and we saw last year with Sebastian Escalante's surprise appearance in that bracket stage, the first time that Latin America made it to the bracket stage in the Masters division. And of course, in the North American Internationals, we had Cesar from Mexico. Latin America is a region that is looking to make an impact, to make a statement here at Worlds again, to show that last year was not a fluke. And,
me da risa que dice que Campeonato Mundial de Pokémon 2017.
They also have some of the craziest fans.
Y en la descripción de que no evolución del Lycan Atardecer.
Football commentary are true. They do that while they're supporting their players here. So very interested to see how these two will match up. Of course, Wolf made that fantastic meta call. Him and a couple of others played together, made that call, and I'll be curious to see if that comes to fruition at this tournament as well.
Yeah, so Wolf, of course, in that last 2016 World Championships, went with a very off-meta team, a very anti-meta team, some Pokemon we had never seen before. This year, it looks like he's going with some pretty classic standard Pokemon with a little bit of a different formation of them. He's running that Snorlax, which we expect to see so much of this tournament, alongside Arcanine, another top-tier Pokemon, the Kartana, Togedemaru, Tapu Fini, and...
Bien, buena tiradera.
For Estefan there on the top of your screen. Mimikyu showing off the Destiny Bond here. So Wolf trying to take one of the Pelipper or Garchomp down with the Mimikyu. Earthquake not affecting Pelipper thanks to its flying type. Will deal damage to Mimikyu and... the ground type high horsepower that we see as the coverage. Attacks. No normal attacks. And if you can't attack a Pokemon with, if Trevenant can wall the normal and the ground, not much that Snorlax can do.
Just has to get past the Arcanine.
Yes.
But in the same way, the rain helps out with that. And the whole team, I think, coming together very well. I'll be interested to see Wolf's use of Togedemaru in the same way he used Raichu last year for his World Championships. I feel it's a very similar slot and a very similar play.
All right, well, we are actually going back in time here for our first game of round one. The classic Metagross and Garchomp lead back from when I was still playing, alongside the Snorlax and Mimikyu for Wolf. So, obviously, going for that immediate hard Trick Room threat with that Snorlax and Mimikyu.
It's really hard to stop a Mimikyu. The way that they come together is certainly interesting, but with Garchomp able to move first, potentially able to break the disguise, Metagross doing a lot of damage, may be able to follow up and take a knockout. As long as disguise is broken, then he's going to be able to stop that Trick Room, and Snorlax isn't going to be able to capitalize on the speed advantage. Well, with that in mind, of course, it's going to be a little bit harder if we do see the Snorlax set up, but interesting opening.
Yeah, it looks like the Mimikyu is going to go ahead and use its own Z-move to start off here. Instead of going for the setup with Trick Room, it's just going to be a never-ending nightmare. Going to target down that Metagross, trying to make sure that Snorlax has no offensive pressure to worry about on Estefan's side. Of course, Steel no longer resisting that ghost type means it's going to be a super effective hit. And Wolf picking up the first KO of the game. Garchomp just going for the Rock Slide here will be able to pop the disguise of Mimikyu, deal a little bit of damage to Snorlax as well. Would love to get a... Oh, that's so sad. Oh, and does get the flinch on Snorlax, so Wolf not going to be able to get set up on that Snorlax just yet. Thanks to Rock Slide's flinch.
I don't think not being set up on the Snorlax is the worst thing, though, because he's removed something very, very important already.
Absolutely.
He got rid of the Metagross, and I think maybe we saw something interesting there in that, yeah, he didn't want Estefan to try and capitalize on a potential Trick Room and get rid of that. So he smartly just removes it from play, takes it out of the equation immediately. And that means he can't get hit by a super effective Steel-type attack. That's so important to remove a threat.
Absolutely.
And looking at how Wolves built this Mimikyu could be so interesting. Z-Crystal, particularly the Ghostium Z.
So scary.
So spooky. Was picked up because of its numerous options. But going for the big never-ending nightmare, absolutely fantastic way to start off your World Championship defense.
Absolutely. Well, it will be Pelipper for Estefan there on the top of your screen. Mimikyu showing off the Destiny Bond here. So Wolf trying to take one of the Pelipper or Garchomp down with the Mimikyu. Earthquake not affecting Pelipper thanks to its flying type. Will deal damage to Mimikyu and Snorlax. A lot of damage to Mimikyu. Pelipper, though, goes for the Hurricane onto Mimikyu. So
this is big.
That's a huge deal there. Mimikyu will faint and bring Pelipper with it. Getting rid of the weather, ignoring a potential Focus Sash, which is what Pelipper loves to run.
That's the biggest deal, is not being affected by the Focus Sash because of Destiny Bond.
Yep, and there is the attack onto Garchomp, getting a little bit of extra damage and Rough Skin, but the Rough Skin is just enough to activate Snorlax's Berry, and so Wolf is right back up to basically full hit points on Snorlax, only losing Mimikyu, but Mimikyu taking down 2 Pokemon this game. That's a lot for a setup Pokemon.
Getting the value out of Mimikyu is something that I think is going to be important to Wolf's team, and we see, very importantly, ignores the Focus Sash, takes Pelipper with it, basically takes out Metagross with no concerns at all, and he should be in a pretty solid position. We do see Estefan's final Pokemon, and it's actually not going to be the Golduck to capitalize on the rain. So a curious team selection from Estefan here, but bringing that Kartana onto the field from Wolf's side, pretty strong play right now. It can outspeed the Garchomp, maybe pick out a knockout there. Then it gets the Beast Boost, which is going to make it terrifying to the Tapu Lele. So overall, very smart play. The Mimikyu's been so important, and Snorlax is sat at nearly full health.
Yeah, Snorlax doesn't care about anything.
Yo soy el que estoy tildeado por
acá.
Ángel.
Vamos
a ver cómo hacemos para
well, so far it looks like that might not be the case for Estefan. Kartana will just protect itself this turn, while Garchomp goes for the Rock Slide again onto the Snorlax, maybe hoping to get another flinch here. Psychic into the Protect, and Estefan is getting the flinches, so Snorlax is not doing as much damage as it could, not getting set up like it wants to, but that's really just delaying it right now.
Yes, it's certainly an interesting way to play the turn. I think Kartana there probably detecting, keeping itself safe, trying to scout out a little bit of how he thinks Estefan's going to knowing what he can do, and a very smart switch here to change that terrain up. And without the possibility to change, that Tapu Lele is not going to be as scary for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Tapu Lele, of course, can't switch out. That protects Kartana, but it's fast enough to get a lot of damage onto Garchomp, which just barely sticks around with, looks like, probably 1 or 2 hit points. Garchomp able to get a Rock Slide off onto Kartana and Tapu Fini. Kartana, of course, also took that rough skin damage, so taking a little bit of extra chip damage here. Tapu Lele's Psychic onto the Kartana is enough to pick up the KO with the rough skin and the extra chip damage, even without the terrain. So Estefan really pulling back a little bit there, getting that Kartana off the field. Now Wolf needs this Tapu Fini and Snorlax to be able to take out Tapu Lele and Garchomp.
I think it's in a very solid position if you're Wolf, though, because the psychic damage so limited from Tapu Lele. Even though we did just see the Life Orb get revealed, good information to gather in this best-of-3 setting. Not taking the knockout on Garchomp, which would have been a very clean ending to the game, I feel, is big, and that's something they need to start thinking about in these. How these damage calculations are falling, what you can knock out with. Knockout with what, and knowing how this matches up, I feel very interested to see there wasn't the knockout with the Leaf Blade from Kartana there.
Ooh, Tapu Lele showing Thunderbolt onto Tapu Fini, super effective, but Tapu Fini is very bulky. Wolf will keep that Pokemon around. Rock Slide, though, will connect onto both Pokemon, so the Rock Slide plus the Thunderbolt will be enough to pick up the KO onto Tapu Fini, and a critical hit onto Snorlax as well, and another flinch! Wolf Snorlax just not able to move.
Well, we do see Snorlax didn't actually set up earlier in the game, and we do see Estefan giving away a lot of information here. He's given away the knowledge of Life Orb. He started showing Tapu Lele's moveset, but that's what he needs to do to
if he gets the win, that's worth it.
Yeah, it's information you can't conceal when a victory right off the bat in the World Championships is on the line.
There's the Moonblast coming in from Tapu Lele, deals a lot of damage back to Snorlax. Snorlax has not been able to recover, get any kind of recycle berries, and the Poison Jab from the Garchomp, and Estefan Valdebenito taking Game 1 over our defending world champion.
Hey Héctor, ya tú sabes lo que te voy a decir.
To be trifled with.
Yep.
A lot of people say it. It's repeated over and over, and it didn't look great. We were talking middle of the game. He's taken a number of knockouts.
Yeah,
just wasn't enough, was it?
Yeah, a lot of those techs on Tapu Lele. That Thunderbolt had to have been a little bit surprising there. Really good for matching up against opposing rain teams, or if you really think that Tapu Fini is going to be the call here at Worlds. And so far, Estefan looks like he's making the right calls there.
Quiere ser tu moderador.
Very well. You have to think if you didn't get some of those flinches, Snorlax may have been able to take over that game, so we'll have to see how these players adjust.
The flinches definitely helped, and you can't rely on them in Game 2. But you've given Wolf so much information.
Yeah.
It's a really dangerous thing to do against Wolf, of course. He gave Poison Jab on his Garchomp, which is almost common, but not on every single one. Then you've got a ton of information about this Tapu Lele, the Thunderbolt. Really, really important. The fact he didn't bring both of the ducks. Something we see really could affect his decision-making coming into Game 2.
Right.
I would be curious to see how much the Tapu Fini is going to get bought. Now it's a little more scared of Tapu Lele. They've both picked a team without Tapu Koko, which was the dominant Tapu Pokemon in the recent North American Internationals. Mixing it up, and I think Tapu Fini has to be played to really deny offensive Tapu Lele from the Tapu Bula and from the Tapu Koko. In this case, he did deny the terrain, but it was kind of nullified by that Thunderbolt being there on the Tapu Lele. So
Nos comunicó eso de las 7, 8 de la noche que ya venía y bueno, ya han pasado 3 horas, no ha llegado, no sabemos si preocuparnos o será lo normal en él.
Voy saliendo de las 7 que te dije.
taking that leaf blade was essential.
Absolutely, just being able to stay up at
Acaba de llegar un mensaje que dice que sí, Metromole esperando que escampe. ¿Será verdad? ¿Será mentira?
One hit point goes a long way.
Yeah, you can stick around, and that's where the focus.
La verdad sí que milagro, yo ni hablo.
In the video game
mudo.
All right, well, we are going to see Trevenant out on the field alongside Garchomp for Estefan. Of course, Wolf will go with the Snorlax and Mimikyu lead once again.
No es raro en Fake, dice. No es raro en Fake.
Pretty similar. And then Estefan shaking things up a little bit despite winning that first game.
Well, we do see the Trevenant coming in to basically try and beat the Snorlax. Of course, Flinch has beat it in game 1, but you don't want to rely on those, and Trevenant having a number of options. Not getting hit is one of them. And of course, getting Will-O-Wisp back in return is another pretty useful one. In the same vein, it's facing off against a Mimikyu. We saw Mimikyu in game 1. Never-ending nightmare. Right off the bat, take a knockout on Metagross.
Yep.
If it can get a knockout on Metagross, the Ghost-type Trevenant probably not sticking around too long. So that's something he's going to have to be scared of. I'm sure Estefan would love to, keep it in, but it's probably not going to be the best thing.
All right, well, Estefan going with what worked in game 1, another rock slide.
Location, please.
The disguise on Mimikyu, and will connect with Snorlax. Will-O-Wisp from Trevenant will connect onto the Snorlax, so Snorlax will be burned this game. So no matter what, if Wolf gets set up here with this belly drum, does still have to worry about the burn as well. So this belly drum will drop Snorlax's hit points and then activate the berry, so Snorlax can heal right back up to where it was when it got hit.
Ay, mi Wi-Fi. Qué bien, mi Wi-Fi.
By that rock slide. And then Mimikyu, flinch through the disguise, so Mimikyu not able to set up Trick Room here. That's going to be a really big deal for Wolf.
Yeah, we see Wolf trying to make an adaptation and trying to make a prediction based on what he saw. He gave away the information of Never-Ending Night in game 1, so he thinks about it as we play game 2. A lot of people may be wondering, why didn't he just take the knockout? Why didn't he go for it? And that's because he's making assumptions of what his opponent's going to do. He thinks Estefan's going to remove Trevenant from play, so it doesn't get knocked out, and he's going to be at his leisure to set up the Trick Room.
Absolutely.
But he wasn't. He got caught by the rock slide, and Trevenant managed to get that burn down on Snorlax, so even though the belly drum's in play, not quite as preposterous amounts of damage coming out.
All right, well, Wolf is trying to make something out of this with a Destiny Bond from Mimikyu again. Garchomp will just be able to fire off an Earthquake, and it's looking very similar to turn 2 of game 1 right now. A lot of damage onto Mimikyu, a little bit onto Snorlax. Trevenant, though, will just go for the Wood Hammer onto that Snorlax, trying to squish that thick Snorlax. Not enough damage to pick up the KO, and of course, wasting the turn of Destiny Bond on
creo que ahora sí se mejoró un poco.
Will be able to recover with this Mickey Berry again. But if Estefan can keep getting free damage on Snorlax, that recycle is just not going to be enough.
Yeah, that's going to be really important that he can keep the Snorlax around. Especially because Trick Room hasn't been set up, it does make it a little harder to keep the Snorlax around.
Right.
But after you've set a belly drum, you really need to get something out of it. You've got to get good value out of that setup.
Absolutely.
That's so essential. And Mimikyu now, low down on health, poses an interesting problem to Estefan. He could take the knockout and take a numerical Pokemon advantage, but he has to be so scared of Destiny Bond. And knowing that it goes first because of the way these Pokemon are ordered in speed, how we've seen that previous turn play out, he just has to be careful. If he takes the knockout, will he give up something so essential? Or could he potentially let Trevenant go for it?
All right, well, it looks like Wolf is just going to go on the offensive here, using his Z move as well, just again on the Mimikyu. Looks like it's going to be that never-ending nightmare once again.
Going for the damage.
Going for the damage, not for the tricky plays here. Going to just finally pick up the KO onto Trevenant here, but Estefan has to be happy with what that Trevenant did already. Just getting that burn off onto Snorlax is a huge deal.
That Trevenant did pretty much the key part of his job, which is burn the Snorlax. It's great if you can stick around and not take the damage, but it didn't, so it's in a good position still.
Another Rock Slide coming out from Garchomp, picks up the KO onto Mimikyu, and another flinch on Snorlax. That is not what you want to happen in Game 2.
I mean, you're already down one game as well. People do say where there's a Rock Slide, there's a way. And even though it's not the most damaging move, it seems to be paying off for him. It's one of those decisions you have to make. Do you go for Earthquake for bigger damage, or do you go to Rock Slide to open the door to your opponent not being able to move? They are both
big on the task.
Pokemon, but I really like the position with a healthy Metagross and Garchomp on Estefan's side of the field. We know Kartana can't knock it out easily either.
Yeah, it would take at least 2 hits.
Creo que ya ahora sí va un
Snorlax,
poco.
of course, is one of Wolf's biggest threats on his team. And at this position, without triggering burn, not much you can do, but substitute Kartana is something that can around. But Garchomp's showing Fire Fang onto Kartana will be more than enough to bust that substitute. 4 times super effective attack there, so Estefan
se ve chopeado un poquito, pero está ahí.
Up his sleeve in for Game 2, showing Hammer on that Metagross as well, definitely showing that Snorlax is not safe.
Yeah, showing off a number of tricks.
Ay, que le ganaron, ya le llevan uno.
Además
Además se va a agrandar, se va a desbocar.
It's bulkier and can take lead blades very comfortably from Kartana, and it can hit back with a Fire Fang. That's a very interesting choice of move to basically make sure, and now we've seen 4 attacks, we can maybe make it an inkling about what the item is on there. No Protect on your Garchomp is a risky play to make.
Yeah, but you're getting the bonuses from Assault Vest, it can be worth it.
It's so worth it, especially with some of these kind of neutral but special attacks coming out, attacking with these special attacks that are rather than physical. Metagross as well, showing Hammer Arm. We've seen that a little bit at regionals this year, but bringing it to the World Championships, admitting this is a call. I think it's an inclination of how scary Snorlax has been that people need more fighting type moves.
Absolutely, that is 100% a call for when you're afraid of Snorlax, you bring that Hammer Arm on Metagross. Looks like Wolf is going to try and take back a little bit of momentum with a switch to Tapu Fini. Kartana just going to detect itself, trying to protect one more turn, while Garchomp gets a Fire Fang into the detect. Metagross just going for the Hammer Arm will do a little bit of damage to that Tapu Fini, but Wolf protecting his Snorlax. Of course, the speed drop on Metagross, not irrelevant here most likely. We'll make sure that Metagross is the slowest thing on the field, at least for now. And if another Hammer Arm comes through, Snorlax may be able to get some damage off from that Metagross.
Ángel, no me dijiste dónde tú eres.
Yeah, I think that's a very smart play.
Repórtate.
Tapu Fini in from Wolf, and this is one of the
Ángel Loquendo
of his play, something that won him his World Championships. Was very smart switching.
Que llegó el verde, vamos Wolf.
Llegó el verde, vamos Wolf.
No, yo no quiero fan de Wolf aquí, no quiero ningún fan de Wolf.
Tapu Fini take some damage on something.
Ya le están dando.
Try and get it with a Moon Blast. Should be in a good position there. But I will say Estefan looks very content with that switch that just got made.
Yeah, Kartana switches out for Snorlax while Poison Jab from that Garchomp does so much damage to Tapu Fini.
¿En qué minuto estás de Twitch?
For some of the RNG of his own with that Muddy Water. Will connect with both the Metagross and Garchomp. Wants to see some accuracy drops. Does get it on Garchomp. Does not get it on Metagross. And it's going to be the all-out pummeling.
More tricks coming out from Estefan's side of the field. He looked comfortable in the switch. I think he knows where he's going to be hitting it, and seeing that Snorlax is probably a delight for him.
Absolutely.
All-out pummeling based off Hammer Arm. Going to be doing a lot of damage.
Those aren't legs, those are fists, and it's going to be a lot of damage onto Snorlax. Estefan picks up that KO on the switch. Pretty smart target anyway, because that would probably do a lot of damage to Kartana regardless.
Even through a potential doubled attack.
But happy to pick up the KO onto Snorlax. That's one of Wolf's threats out of the way. But Wolf does get to send Kartana back out here, and getting the accuracy drop onto Garchomp is pretty big.
Lo mismo pasó en el último. Yo creo que el otro le dio un ataque y el man la aseguró con el sim. Dije, pa,
hay que el
evita problemas.
El 10% hay que temerle. Yo sé de eso. Hashtag.
Is probably going to be able to deal with
mayúscula todo.
some decent neutral hits, but Kartana doesn't have anything that's super effective against either of these in most of its move pools. We've seen it carrying Detect and Substitute,
a ver,
so it only has 2 moves. Sacred Sword and Leaf Blade are going to struggle.
Goes for the poison jab misses. Tapu Fini able to get the Muddy Water off. That accuracy drop coming up huge, so Tapu Fini survives one more turn. Muddy Water will pick up the KO on Metagross and another accuracy drop onto Garchomp. Now with that 2 Muddy Waters, that should be within range for Kartana to pick up the KO here with Leaf Blade.
Digo que ese Muddy Water está hackeado.
Poison jab.
Dice que 90%.
Tapu Lele.
Yes, and this Tapu Lele is bringing its
y que 10% de fallar y 10% de precisión. Tú tienes como 20 o 30.
You have to put yourself in Wolf's shoes a little bit and wonder how he targets things down. He needs to start taking knockouts quickly. Maybe he only has 1 turn to protect Tapu Fini, and you have to wonder if Kartana is able to deal with this Tapu Lele. We know it doesn't have Smart Strike, so it doesn't have a steel type attack, but it needs something else dealing big damage. I think investing in Tapu Lele, removing that from play, and hoping that the accuracy drops from Garchomp are enough to keep it in check. That's how Wolf's going to swing this game very, very quickly back in his favor.
Absolutely. We already know that Estefan can pick up whichever KO he pleases with that Tapu Lele, but Wolf, using that substitute, will be able to protect itself. Here though, Tapu Lele goes for the psychic onto the substitute, so Kartana will tank that, not going for the detect, just going for the substitute in the hopes that maybe Estefan would have targeted down that Tapu Fini and get a free substitute. But probably pretty happy about that. Fire Fang connects though. 2 Muddy Water accuracy drops, but the Fire Fang connects when it counts. Tapu Fini all alone now against the Tapu Lele.
Cruzando los dedos para el hacks.
Sí, casi como 60% de pegarle
but will connect with Tapu Lele, and if Wolf can get some accuracy drops here, may have a chance, but not going to get it.
No, yo estoy seguro que si hubiera estado full de precisión falla con ese 5%.
Champion, just 1 more turn.
2-0. 2-0. A very, very comfortable landmark win.
Oye, y aún así está de pie.
But it was just played very, very well throughout. I do think that, you know, a little bit fortunate to hit the Fire Fang through the double action. But smart targeting, you have to see what Estefan's thought pattern was there. He respected that the Kartana was going to be the thing to swing it back in Wolf's favor. And then double targeted it, so even with a substitute. Unless there was a detect coming out from that Kartana, then he was in a really, really good position to basically try and win the game. Wolf putting himself in a almost treacherous position for his World Championship defense. Yeah, I mean, going 0-1 in your first match is not great. But of course, all he has to do is win 5 games. So if he wins 5 games today, he will advance to Day 2. It doesn't matter if you won 5-1 or 5-2. Just need that 5. So Wolf is still very much alive, but Estefan Valdebenito here.
Hoy no vieron 2.
First match of our World Championships.
Okay, hubo el de Z-Move, hubo el normal, y hubo, pero el otro era un gameplay de Pokémon a mí, una locura, eso era de Pokémon. Y parece como que puedes modificar tu pose. Eso fue lo que entendí. A la hora de hacer Z-Move, una cosa así, ¿no? Nada que ver, nada que ver. No, si no me anuncia mi minigame, no me interesa.
O sea, Wolfie lo pudieron a sudar.
Él siempre lo ponen a sudar. Ese es su show tiempo que yo no sé. Cogiendo rayos en vez de actuando normal. Por eso que la gente como el debe 9 gana, debe perder. Estoy hateando.
What value can you get out of that? Can you beat Rain with it? You have to look at all the options. You know, with this team that we saw Estefan Rain.
Una batalla sí pude verla que fue la que.
Muéstrame en qué minuto vas, que no me dijiste.
Kind of fills that spot with just the one Pokemon. Right, and you get a different terrain. It's also a terrain that helps out more than just that Pokemon.
34-57.
Which I think is going to be important. We didn't see any psychic type attack, but it's likely it has one.
Lo que sí es que
and knowing that it does so much, the Metagross being Snorlax, being one of your offensive
is
so essential to a team like that. I do like Wolf's team, but I feel that he got a little unlucky trying to set it up in this game.
Yeah, that is one of the risks you run with setup-heavy teams, especially like Trick Room and Belly Drums.
Posiblemente, Omega, posiblemente.
You get those bad looks and you're kind of in a hole.
Aunque la verdad yo solo regalo los eventos eventos de Nintendo, no de jugadores, ¿no? Pero podría ser que el 20 este domingo regale el equipo del campeón, si lo iba a conseguir. Aunque estoy apostando que va a ganar un team comercial, un Tapu Koko, un Kartana, un Arcana, y algo así va a ganar este mundial. No, mira, no, nada de eso, César. Yo, eso tienes que decirle a Junior. Él sí le encantado repartido Wolf y Team y todo eso.
Pick 4 mechanic that we have going on. You can bring a 50% different team between games in a match. That's really interesting. We did see from Wolf's side, he's stuck with the Mimikyu Snorlax, and I'd be curious to see if, you know, if we was.
¿Qué pasó con el tercer match? Wolfie que no yo soy el campeón, denme más play para tomar agua y refrescarme.
No sé, mira, yo tampoco estoy. Están reposando.
Se supone que tiene que ser seguido, no sé qué pasa.
And it's so hard to do that when you've got this damage coming out from Tapu Lele, Metagross, Garchomp even. So difficult to do that.
Ah, no, lo que iba a decir era de una batalla que sí, que creo que va a pasar más adelante. Es de tal Hitmonchan. No sé cómo dice, creo que es Gary, no sé cómo se llama. El Matapro, o sea, ese team yo lo había visto en Shadow. Y capaz era él testeando team, ¿no? El Mato usando un Poliwrath, Tapu Koko, Pelipper. O sea, que la variación de lo que yo entiendo por lo que he visto del team es el Poliwrath. Le conviene el tipo pelea. Y la gente, cuando estaba la batalla, la gente dice que eso para Dynamic Punch, Z o qué. Puro ataque clásico de Poliwrath. No sé cómo exactamente lo usa, pero le conviene porque Goldo, el counter de Goldo, el último meta que ha salido es Snorlax en los teams comerciales. Pues. Entonces imagino que Poliwrath, al ser tipo luchador, le contea un poco. Se lo quita de encima, pues al team, ya el otro tiene que hacer el resto. Y además jugó pro, yo chuzo. Y eso que creo que fue la segunda o tercera, empezó mal. El primer turno, no, fue en la primera batalla, yo chuzo lo GG'aron. Y el man no se dio la vuelta a la chuzo, pero tuvo muy pro esa batalla. De una vez yo lo califiqué que él puede llegar. Debió haber pasado este día. Pues. Y ahora si no pasó, bueno, ese que le salieron los counters, poco.
You have, way back in the day, 2011, I believe.
Omega, el Executor, a Lola que repartió hoy es... No es en nadie específicamente, es el Executor, porque cada año dan un específico. No me acuerdo cuál fue el del año pasado, la verdad. Pero bueno, este año dieron el Executor a Lola, creo que nombra por las palmeras y la cosa que hay se está realizando ahora mismo el torneo del Mundial. ¿Cómo que es? Anaheim, California. Y bueno, pues tiene el movimiento especial Celebrate, celebración. Bueno, si no saben, está en la descripción, vayan a leer. Tiene combinarlo con el normal Instinct. No me da todas las estadísticas más uno.
Those day 2 players are waiting. They want to see who the best of the best are in this day 1.
I guarantee you everyone in day 2 is out there watching this match because they wanted to see what Wolf was running. And now they're looking at it and they're like, oh wait, Estefan? I have to worry about that?
Yeah, you do. You have to worry about everyone.
Sí, César, ya él tiene el team copiado.
Ya.
Ni lo ha socado y ya él tiene el team. Faltan 3 o 2 semanas faltan ya para el séptimo torneo UGC en Panamá. Por ahí vamos a estar dando el anuncio.
We are going to have Yoshimura Tomoyuki up against Honami Shoma. So it should be a really exciting matchup.
Ya que posiblemente sea el domingo 3 de septiembre.
From International's Dragonite made an appearance on stream. We've also seen our first sand, so we got 2 weathers already.
Es que la batalla empezó y no están grabando. Omega, no, sí, tengo los eventos, pero no hago repartición de esos eventos antiguos. Ah, no, esta batalla no es la de Wolf, este es otro. Dos japoneses asiáticos, Tomoyuki Yoshimura versus Shoma Onami. Se nota la tensión, los japoneses juegan en serio, sin mueca, sin nada, van a lo suyo.
They have some very interesting synergy that they can put into play, and I'd love to see if that's something that North American players copied from Japanese players, or if that's something that Japanese players kind of figured out on their own, maybe even look to America for influence, although I doubt that, and then really kind of perfected the team. That's happened a few times with Japan just taking a team and making it a little bit better.
Yeah, that tends to happen. Remember 2015?
I was there, I remember 2015 pretty well. But, you know, the way we see this game shaping up right now, we do see Tomoyuki with 4 Pokemon remaining, just 2 on Shoma, and he's already taken 1 of the games as well, so he should be in a commanding position. We do see that discrepancy in the health bars of the Pokemon on the field right now, though.
Absolutely. Well, Wide Guard coming out here from Gigalith. Shoma is trying to protect both that Gigalith and the Tapu Koko, but just going to be a Bullet Punch coming out from Metagross onto Tapu Koko, getting a good amount of damage back. Thunderbolt will be able to pick up a KO here for Shoma, the first of this game. Salamence, though, will be trying to go for just another single target attack onto that Tapu Koko. Is able to get that flamethrower off and pick up a KO as well. So Shoma, just with that Gigalith now, showing that Wide Guard. I believe we also saw Bulldoze coming out previously the turn before. So very common Salamence to what we saw at that International Championship. So Buzzwole actually out on the field as well to just clean this one up against Gigalith.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very interesting to see it tidy up against Gigalith. The one thing I do want to see out of the Buzzwole, actually, is if Tomoyuki wants to help us out, throw us a bone, show off the item that it has, because a lot of people have been debating. No such luck, because we do see the forfeit locked in there. But the Buzzwole is an interesting one. It's been featured on some of these rain teams, and I'm always curious to see, is it a Salt Vest, or is it a Z Crystal, Titanium Z? Similar to the one we saw on Metagross. It's very, very strong. And
Buzzwole's got bigger arms, too, so
but it
more damage.
Less arms.
Right.
So, but they're
bigger.
Yes, that is a fact. But the all-out pummeling from Buzzwole just deals with so much. It deals with something like a Gigalith pretty handily. Deals with a Porygon 2 pretty handily.
Yes.
And it's one of those interesting techs that I'm thinking people are going to be picking up on. We saw people end of our regional circuit over here, smattering, of course, at internationals. You know, we saw that basically happening with something like Pheromosa.
Yep.
The all-out pummeling was taking knockouts, but it, of course, was based off the special attack stat, and it found an opening in not being caught by Arcanine.
Absolutely.
Buzzwole with the same typing, but a physical variant. Kind of struggles with that. Be curious to see how that matches up against the field, though.
Yeah, Buzzwole, though, being the more reliable choice. You know, once you get rid of the Z Crystal, once you blow the Crystal, the Z move, Pheromosa is very much sort of a flip of the coin.
You don't like gambling on potential Protect 7?
Celadon City was not my favorite city.
That makes sense.
But Buzzwole able to just sit there, tank some hits, fire back with its big, beefy arms.
Está cool,
much more reliable.
Darkrai con distorsión, corte vacío. Movimiento de Diagiparkia. Si no confirme.
A Pokemon that a lot of people were afraid of, but did not really make much of a showing at the North American Internationals.
It was talked about a lot.
It
got a lot of
Black and White.
A lot of buzz. But not a lot of Buzzwole.
El Darkrai sí está cool, aunque no compite mucho. Y ahora menos con el nerf de Darkrai.
Tommy Cooley, with his international runs, was running the Buzzwole. A lot of people have looked at it, but I think Pheromosa is just such a high-risk, high-reward Pokemon. You can't afford that in the World Championship. So your regional's great. Go nuts. Flip that coin, turn 1 every time. But at Worlds, you want consistency. You can only afford 2 losses. You want to run hot. And I just don't think Pheromosa is the selection.
Freeze Ultra Beast. Se tildió la demencia, pues.
it does get a little bit regional, this event. It's the World Championships.
Alright, well, Adam, I'm not going to keep you away from your phone any longer. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with very much more from the Pokemon World Championships here in Anaheim, California. So stay tuned.
Battles in the Pokemon video games are exciting tests of strategy, but if you're a newer player, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the choices. When it comes to training and battling with your Pokemon, where do you begin? Here's a simple guide to help break it all down. Pokemon, as well as the moves they attack with, are split into different types, such as grass, fire, and water. Each of these types has strengths and weaknesses against each other. So a grass-type Pokemon is weak against fire-type moves, but resistant to water-type moves. A more dramatic example would be that electric-type moves are strong against flying-type Pokemon, but won't hit ground-type Pokemon at all. Some Pokemon possess two types instead of one. Rowlet is both a grass and flying-type Pokemon, with the combined weaknesses and resistances of those two types. So what makes a Pokemon unique, even from others of its own species? It's a combination of the Pokemon's moves, its stats, the item it's holding, and its ability. Pokemon can learn many different moves, but may only know up to 4 at the same time. All moves are split into 3 categories: physical moves, special moves, and status moves, represented by the symbol next to each move. A Pokemon's stats can vary wildly from one to another, and are a big factor in each Pokemon's unique battle strategy. A Pokemon has 6 stat categories. If a Pokemon's HP reaches 0, it will faint and be unable to battle for the rest of the match. A Pokemon's attack determines how much damage it deals when using physical moves like Wild Charge or Icicle Crash. Meanwhile, its defense determines how much damage it will take from an opponent's physical moves.
Para los novatos, los que están empezando, el fuego le gana a la planta y planta al agua y así se va. Así mismo lo VGC, todo se da.
A Pokemon's speed stat determines the order of battle. When 2 Pokemon face off, the one with the higher speed will move first that round. Each Pokemon can hold a single item given to them by the player. Some items are consumed by the Pokemon for a one-time effect, and other items have a long-term passive effect. Each Pokemon possesses an ability which comes into effect automatically when specific conditions are met. Rowlet's ability, Overgrow, boosts the power of its Grass-type attacks when its HP is low. Certain abilities show a message on screen when they activate. Finally, a brand new game mechanic for Pokemon Sun and Moon players are Z-moves. These are super-powered versions of standard moves that can only be used once per battle. There's a lot to consider when deciding which Pokemon to battle with, especially with trainers being allowed 6 Pokemon on a team. Focus on the basics to start. Find your favorite Pokemon and train it to have moves, an item, and an ability that play to its strengths. Then, find some teammates that help cover your first Pokemon's weaknesses. You'll have a solid, battle-ready team before you know it. If you want more information on how to train or battle with your Pokemon, you can find resources on Pokemon.com. Want to watch the pros battle it out at our premier tournaments? Watch on Pokemon.com/live.
Y esta fue la lección de aprendizaje Pokémon.
I first started playing Pokemon when I was, I think, 8. The first game I played was Pokemon 3. I can't really explain what it is that draws me to it, but playing with friends is always really fun, and also the graphics.
Pero la pro que haya sido una YAL, no que haya estar pro.
It's pretty amazing to see them move now. My name is Zoe. I also go by the in-game name of Thara. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and I was very fortunate to have won the Oceania Championships in 2017. I'm a bit of a perfectionist when I'm team building, and obviously there's no perfect team. I just end up making a team and then throwing it aside, making another one, and then that just continues until the day of the competition when I have to register, and then that's when I start just randomly throwing things together. I really did not expect to win Oceania at all. My plane was due to fly out in the early afternoon, so I had to reschedule my flight on that Saturday. When I actually won, I felt like I was dreaming because that was one of the biggest surprises of my life. I come from more of a casual kind of background. I know there are some people out there who probably take it a bit more seriously, but for me, I've entered to have fun, and it was just icing on the cake that I won. I think the one bit of advice I'd have for anyone competing is that as long as you enter, you have a chance to win, and I think just be confident in yourself and enjoy the competition.
Vic, ya te fuiste.
Welcome back to the 2017 Pokemon World Championships. My name is Gabby Snyder. I'm joined here by Adam Doricott. I hear you got to watch an amazingly exciting round earlier.
We had a really good round one. We had our defending world champion play, not quite get the win that he needed. You know, Wolf went down against Estefan. Estefan representing Chile, Latin America. A number of people, as Evan suggested before we broke, I did have a good old thumb through on my phone, catch up on the Play Pokemon hashtag, and a lot of people already getting behind the Latin America region, really wanting to see how they can do over the weekend. So we're off to a great start. Round 2 is getting prepared right now. All these players, there's a number of players who've already dropped a game. Can't drop another one. Well, you can.
No, you can, but then you're just one loss closer to not getting your invite, if you will, to play tomorrow at the World Championships. It's really a tough spot to be in. You don't want to lose round 1. It can sort of, you know, mess with your head a little bit moving forward in the day. But you're not out yet. If you did have that game round 1 loss, you're still in the game. You just got to take these moments, use them wisely, maybe rethink your strategy a little bit.
Well, the one thing I will say that came out of game 1 is very interesting team selections. And we actually took a brief look at some games from Japanese players as well, where those interesting team selections kind of carried on. So I think it would be kind of worth us to look a little bit about how teams are composed, and when we know that, with that knowledge in play, we can then kind of figure out how people are going to be building these world champion quality teams. All the teams that won world championships down the line, if we think back to last year, Wolf's team with the Rayquaza and the Kyogre when that was illegal. In 2015 we had Japan dominating the top of the play. 2014, everyone's favorite, with the Pachirisu from Sejun Park. It's to deny is a very competitive choice. You sacrifice an amount of HP every single turn, but you do even more damage. It's like a double-edged sword, really, in that you take a trade-off. Now, the one thing I find interesting about Life Orb is when people
only used special attacks so far.
Están allá jugando fuerte.
You can basically take away a number of Metagross's weaknesses with this team. The Fire-type weakness, of course, going to be reduced by that Rain from Politoed, not the usual setter of Rain, I would like to point out. That Ground-type weakness, as long as it's Earthquake, Bulldoze, or Magnitude, being taken away by that type of boom. So, it's going to be such an interesting kind of setup for the pair of them as they play this game. I think a lot on Cameron's team kind of relies on how he plays it out. I'd love to see if he can get all of those pieces set up and moving.
Alright, Cameron sending out that combination of Salamence and Metagross versus Trista's lead of Togedemaru and Celesteela.
Well, very interesting to see that Salamence and Metagross put immediately together. Both these players sitting on a 1-0 record, we didn't touch on that. But the Togedemaru in play for Trista. It's going to be Trista on the bottom of your screen, while Cam's is actually on the top. So overall, a very interesting lead. Metagross and Salamence could do well.
Togedemaru con Celesteela, Metagross y Salamence.
It's not going to catch that Celesteela, but
Togedemaru debe hacer fake out, Celesteela
to play with that kind of Salamence.
No, Celesteela está bien.
And Trista likely having to throw the fake out from this Togedemaru into that Salamence slot.
And that is exactly what we see. Metagross following up with a Zen Headbutt, going to target down that Togedemaru for a nice amount of damage. Celesteela revealing that it's carrying hidden power, attacking that Salamence, and it is super effective. So that is either a dragon or maybe an ice type hidden power.
Yes, hidden power Celesteela ofensivo. Throughout the course of the history of video game championships, but not been so popular in the previous years. It's changed a little bit since the glory days of 2011, 2012. And doing that much damage to Salamence is so important, but both players trading a little bit, not quite a knockout. Togedemaru taking damage from Zen Headbutt, though, I think is very important. Because of its typing, it's exceptionally weak to a potential bulldoze from this Salamence. If it can get that off, it might get a knockout now, because the Zen Headbutt has broken any potential focus sashes. Togedemaru is going to try and defend itself, though.
Zing Zap into that Salamence, but Salamence is not knocked out, firing off a flamethrower into that Togedemaru for the knockout. So no bulldoze or any form of speed control from that Salamence quite yet, but still able to get the knockout that I think Trista was looking for. Zen Headbutt into that Celesteela, who fires off a Leech Seed back into that Metagross.
I think the interesting to look at
Metagross lo está obligando a cambiar. Y Salamence está casi.
Now Togedemaru appeared in one of our earlier regional championships, and then it's going to be able to do a little bit to help its team. It's not there to deal damage, it's actually there to help something set up. In this case, it's Celesteela, and it's using a very slow-paced move in Leech Seed. What it will be doing is setting a seed on that Pokemon as long as it remains on the field. We've got it on our little tip over there, basically healing you up while slowly damaging your opponent. That is so interesting, because it forces you to force switches, try not to stick around after that Leech Seed. And if you're forced to switch,
Celesteela aprovecharse de eliminar a Salamence para el boost. Metagross está intimidado por el Arcanine y por el Leech Seed. Tiene que cambiar. O sacrificarlo. No digamos como tiene atrás.
Excuse me. Arcanine intimidating that Salamence not going to be much helpful here, because Salamence has only used special attacks so far in this game. And Metagross's Clear Body ability will actually ignore that stat drop entirely.
Well, now we see the Arcanine come into play. You have to wonder how he's going to kind of protect the Metagross. That's so important to see how that goes. And Garchomp's a pretty solid answer to Arcanine.
Hey,
Garchomp definitely happy to soak up those fire attacks, but Arcanine not falling for it, using the extreme speed to knock out that Salamence before it has a chance to attack.
Oye, eso tiene 5%, señor.
Yeah, not getting any damage. And of course, resetting that potential Leech Seed. So Celesteela isn't going to be covering any health between this. We do, of course, see it just play out very wisely. And now, Cameron in a really good position to basically bring in.
Oye, buen comp. Ahora que te tienes que cambiar acá. Arcanine y Celesteela lo están intimidados.
Because Garchomp hasn't been intimidating, I think that's something that really affects the matchup between Garchomp and Arcanine. Because after an Intimidate, Arcanine can actually stick around.
Garchomp tiene que tener el Sim Move.
The electric terrain come into play, which means
si no, el se llevará su propio coco.
An electric type attack is going to be taking huge damage.
Yeah, Celesteela though not going to be caught. Instead, Tapu Fini taking the field.
Pero no puede hacer doble cambio. Ahora usó Protect.
Sí, usó Protect. Arcanine using Protect here to prevent itself from taking any damage from the Pokemon on Cameron's side of the field. Thunderbolt into the Tapu Fini, and then Garchomp using Rock Slide, not going to damage the Arcanine, but will connect with the Tapu Fini to bring it just below half of its health remaining.
Yes, bringing that Tapu Fini low on health is very important, because it's a naturally bulky Pokemon that's certainly harder to knock out. But, as we talked about in the game, changing that terrain means you limit the damage output of Tapu Koko. And the Thunderbolt not quite as potent. So, it is going to help out a little bit. Of course, Misty Terrain would reduce the damage of any Dragon-type attacks, but this year, Garchomp hasn't brought them to the party at all.
No Dragon-type attack quite yet. Garchomp protecting this turn. Tapu Koko using Sky Drop to take Tapu Fini up into the sky with it, preventing it from attacking this turn. And Arcanine left Flare Blitzing into the missing Tapu Koko.
Yes, that's something that is a big deal. Sky Drop getting you out of the way for a full turn is so helpful. Most players, though, use it when they're trying to set something up. So Cameron here may be a little bit defensive, maybe not trying to set up something like the common sword stance on Garchomp. might have been able to capitalize a little bit more on that turn. But overall, you know, this Tapu Fini is not going to be in play. Maybe he was predicting a Protect on Arcanine, the safe kind of play that he's seeing this turn from Trista.
Celesteela taking the place of that Arcanine as Tapu Koko returns the Tapu Fini to the ground. Tapu Fini free to attack, but Garchomp going for a Groundium Z move. If this goes into that Celesteela, this could be a huge amount of wasted potential.
This could be a big deal where it goes. It is going for the attack, and we do see the Tectonic Rage, so that is going to mean it is going to be connecting with that Tapu Fini. Very, very smart play there from Cameron to not fall into Trista's traps. Switching in that Celesteela to try and avoid it altogether was going to be a big play, but getting rid of Tapu Fini is so essential. That means if we do see the switch out on Tapu Koko, it's going to be easy to get that electric terrain back in play. And now I think Garchomp just able to maybe deal a little bit of damage, do a little bit more, before it isn't needed on the field anymore. It's so important to see how this one turns out. But getting rid of that Tapu Fini was very, very important, especially after that Skydrop turn didn't quite pay off.
You know, it was a great form of synergy, I think, between the Tapu Koko and the Garchomp. Since Tapu Koko took Tapu Fini up into the sky, it couldn't protect, thus ensuring that Cameron's Garchomp's Z move will connect.
Yeah, that's so essential. And seeing, I think, Trista leave Arcanine in for an extra turn was something that he used to his advantage to make those predictions, that she was trying to bait out something like a Z move and then bring in Celesteela a turn later. Doesn't appear to have worked so much, and with that Intimidate, that's going to be, I think, Trista's best way back in is keeping these things in check, but she's not going to be able to switch to try and get any more value out of it.
Metagross taking the field for Garchomp, Volt Switch from that Tapu Koko, allowing Cameron to send the Garchomp back out onto the field without that Intimidate drop from the Arcanine. So a lot of great defensive synergy here, getting that Metagross in play, getting that Garchomp in play, and knowing that neither of them would be intimidated. But Arcanine with that Flare Blitz going to crash into the Garchomp for not a lot of damage at all, activating Garchomp's Rough Skin ability and taking some damage in return, also from the recoil of its own move. Celesteela with the Hidden Power Ice into the Metagross, assuming it's ice, it's not very effective to end the turn.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit better if it was going into that Garchomp slot, maybe predicting the Garchomp to come in that place, but it didn't get the knockout there. And we do see a little bit of an uphill struggle, I think, for Trista now. The Metagross, interesting at this point of the game for Cameron, because it's not really able to pull its weight here. It isn't going to be facing off too well against Arcanine. We have seen there's no rain to defend it, and it's really curious to see how this one will end up planning out. I like the way that he's just removed it from play here, knowing he's not getting top value out of it.
Tapu Koko taking its place and bringing back with it the electric terrain, going to boost all of its electric type attacks. Arcanine protecting this turn, not wanting to take damage maybe from an Earthquake, or in this case, a Rock Slide from that Garchomp. It will connect with the Celesteela, deal a little bit of damage, but the big question here is, will that Celesteela does not Hidden Power into that Garchomp? It's going to be super effective, but Garchomp is just barely hanging on.
Very smart play there, I think, from Trista to try and open up the door a little bit by getting damage down on the Garchomp. May put it in range for potentially extreme speed knockout. You still have to be so worried about this Tapu Koko. That's the big thing.
Es que no la vi todas.
On the
Pero sabe cómo de las que?
The Tapu Koko is really left unchecked. We see it just starting the turn with big damage.
Thunderbolt from that Tapu Koko into the Arcanine, dealing enough damage to activate its Berry in a pinch. Getting its health back with that Mago Berry. Celesteela dodging the Rock Slide. It does connect with the Arcanine. It brings it right back down into the red. Arcanine flinches and is unable to move Celesteela, the only Pokemon attacking on Trista's side of the field this turn, with a heavy slam into that Tapu Koko for a critical hit.
I think if we'd seen the we could have had a much different game here, because double targeting that Tapu Koko would have opened up the door. Garchomp was going to struggle with potential Rock Slides, and that could have been very different. Of course, if the Tapu Koko had gone down, then Garchomp was liable to get knocked out by an Extreme Speed, and Celesteela could start doing the Celesteela wall that has been really well known for, especially against that Metagross in the back. So overall, I think Trista really needed a little bit more out of her Arcanine. That flinch, so essential in not being able to allow her to play. Tapu Koko would have taken so much with the Flare Blades.
Trista going for the knockout on that Tapu Koko anyways with an Extreme Speed, but it misses it. Tapu Tapu Koko Thunderbolt into the Celesteela for the knockout, and provided Garchomp is able to connect and attack with that Arcanine this turn, it indeed does with the Rock Slide. Game 1 goes to Cameron.
Yes, game 1. Falling in Cameron's favor, that flinch on Arcanine, so essential, and I think we're seeing a lot of people pick up Rock Slide on their Garchomp, but overall, he used the Metagross wisely, forced a certain way of play around it, and overall, kind of was in a solid position to do well with that. I liked how he played that game. We didn't see the classic combination of the Salamence and the Metagross on the field together, so there may be an inclination that this team can play multiple lanes.
And that's what I think you need to look for when team building for the Pokemon World Championships. Even though your team may have a obvious mode, if you will, you know, you see the Ulu, you see the Salamence, you see the Metagross, and you think, oh, I know what that's going to do. I will bring some Pokemon to counter it. That wasn't the case here, and that slight advantage in Game 1 can lead you into a really great spot for Game 2. You know, your opponent starts asking themselves, well, you know, will they bring the Bulldoze and activate maybe the weakness policy on the Metagross? I don't know. And there's a lot more mind games going on right now.
I think Trista played the Togedemaru well, but it was a little bit linear. She knew she had to shut down Salamence because of the fear of Bulldoze. And really, Cameron just played around that. He got some damage down with that headbutt, ignored the focus sash, and that kind of linear gameplay isn't going to work again in Game 2. She has to change something up. The onus is on Trista to really deal with that as quickly as possible.
She certainly has the tools, I think, to do so. We haven't seen that Garchomp yet, but it does carry with it and Intimidate, so maybe having 2 Intimidators on her team might help her weaken the Garchomp so it doesn't deal as much damage moving forwards. Gyarados also, you know, it hovers in the air. She could possibly bring her own Garchomp with it to, you know, just deal some damage with her own Earthquake or her own Rock Slide or whatever other moves that Garchomp holds.
I'd be curious to see how she uses this combination of Arcanine and Gyarados. Not just in this match, of course, but throughout the course of the tournament. It's been talked about a lot as this potential answer to some of these things that have been a little bit difficult. We did think Garchomp was so important, I think, for Cameron. So being able to switch that up, not be as much of a problem, they double Intimidate is wise, but you get no value of it against Metagross, purely because Metagross has the clear body ability.
Salamance's Intimidate from Cameron's side of the field, weakening the attack of the Togedemaru and Garchomp on Trista's side of the field. That Metagross rounding out Cameron's lead.
Yeah, the Metagross and Salamence, a classic pairing, been seen before in previous years, but coming back this year towards the end of the season as a potential meta-defining team. Be very interesting to watch its progress over the course of the weekend. But against Garchomp and Togedemaru, it certainly has to be careful. I know we talked a little bit, of course, about Garchomp not having a Dragon-type move in most cases, but if there is an option for it to come out, now would be a great time.
Fake out from the Togedemaru, Sword Stance from the Garchomp on Trista's side of the field, boosting its attack by 2 stages. Metagross with the Zen Headbutt again going to target down not the Togedemaru, instead the Garchomp this turn for a nice amount of damage, taking some damage in recoil.
Well, we see Cameron there playing the game a little differently because of what happened in turn 1 of the last game. Now this Garchomp's set up for a pretty limited kind of trade in that regard. It does, of course, take a little bit of damage from Zen Headbutt, but Togedemaru is still in play with full health and a potential Focus Sash available, and Garchomp is now threatening anything with a +2 attack. Likely going to be a Tectonic Rage onto something, because you don't want to be hitting your partner Togedemaru. It isn't the Air Balloon, we did not see that on the way in, and this switch may be giving an inclination to what kind of attack we'll be seeing.
Well, Celesteela is happy to float in the air for as long as it can, so if Garchomp were to attack this turn, it would not take any damage. Instead, Garchomp protects as Salamence finally uses that Bulldoze attack. It's only going to deal damage to the Metagross on its side of the field, but I think that was what Cameron was hoping for. We see an item activate. It is that weakness policy, and it'll sharply raise the attack and special attack of that Metagross, who tries to use Meteor Mash to attack the Garchomp to end the turn.
Well, I think what we saw there was Cameron really wanted that Garchomp to not be going first. Wanted to get a Bulldoze on it and be able to deal with it, and probably tidy it up with Metagross. He is a little bit scared. Garchomp at +1 attack due to the Intimidate is still looking exceptionally likely to do damage to Metagross, and exceptionally likely to do enough damage to take a knockout there. So that's something he has to be very careful of. Of course, if we do see Trista go for the Earthquake, Garchomp isn't going to be getting anything down on the Salamence, and that's something you can't afford to do right now.
Trista saving the Garchomp for later, sending out the Togedemaru in its place. Metagross protecting this turn, not wanting to risk taking damage from that Garchomp. Salamence with the Dragon Pulse to attack the Togedemaru on the switch for a little bit of damage, and Celesteela finishing up the turn with a Leech Seed into that, protecting Metagross.
Yeah, well, Togedemaru taking that little bit of chip damage is going to be so important, but it's a bit of information about Cameron's team that Trista now has. Knowing that Garchomp can't stay in against this Salamence, has to be so aware of it. And that's something that you just need to know in these kind of sets. Togedemaru, though, feeling comfortable enough to not use Fake Out.
Togedemaru happy to use its speed to go faster than that Metagross and lock it into Protect with an Encore. Bulldoze from that Salamence to knock out the Togedemaru and deal a little bit of damage to Metagross, but I think Togedemaru did its job on this one. Metagross is able to protect again this turn, and Celesteela again with the Leech Seed into the protecting Metagross, but overall such a great play and really an interesting use of Togedemaru.
Yeah, it certainly is. Togedemaru using Encore, forcing Metagross to protect, but even though it protected the previous turn, it manages to pull off another protect, and that's something that's so important. Getting those coin flips to fall in your favor, because it's a very limited chance that you do get to protect twice in a row, but getting those is big, and not getting the Leech Seed down means that it could switch a little more leisurely, or it could stay in for another turn to take the Leech Seed before switching. I don't think it's too worried about the Tapu Fini, while Salamence may be worried about a Fairy-type attack. Metagross is still in a pretty good position. Salamence can also do some good damage back to something like the Celesteela with the Flamethrower we saw from Game 1.
Tapu Koko taking the place of the Metagross on the field and bringing with it that electric terrain. Salamence moves next with a Flamethrower to attack that Celesteela for a nice amount of super effective damage. Not enough for maybe a 2 or 3 hit knockout, but, you know, a nice amount. Tapu Fini revealing a little bit more about itself, using Calm Mind to boost its special attack and special defense. Well, and one more Leech Seed there from that Celesteela, finally connecting with the Pokemon. In this case, it's that Tapu Koko.
Yeah, but I don't think the Leech Seed alone is going to be enough to force this Tapu Koko away from the Tapu Fini on Trista's side. Basically, that Tapu Fini is in there now. It probably wants to try and stay in as long as possible because it did set up the Calm Mind, but it's such a difficult place to justify staying in on. Tapu Koko in electric terrain is going to be doing so much damage. Big damage from even a Thunderbolt. Doesn't even require a Z Crystal to do ridiculous amounts of damage. And Tapu Fini, even with a boosted stage of special defense, is going to struggle to take multiple turns of that. So that's something that Trista's going to have to be very, very careful of. Celesteela taking that little bit of damage will be sticking around even longer because of the Leech Seed, but something that Salamence is in a decent position to try and deal with.
Garchomp taking the place of the Salamence. Happy to take that Thunderbolt without dealing any damage, but Cameron calling the switch, goes for a Dragon Pulse into the Garchomp and almost gets that knockout. Tapu Fini fires back a Moonblast into the Tapu Koko, but it's not going to do enough to even put it or threaten it of a knockout for the next turn.
And that's a very interesting play. We see one of these classic double target turns coming in from Cameron. He goes all in on the slot on our right. If the Celesteela stays in, it gets caught by Thunderbolt. If the Garchomp comes in, it gets caught by Dragon Pulse. And that's such top-tier play. He doesn't get anything knocked out in return for it, though. Tapu Fini does not manage to retaliate with like a Moonblast or a Dazzling Gleam on something such as Salamence to take a knockout. So it certainly struggles a little bit to kind of justify that turn. But Tapu Fini being left alone is really good news for Trista. Tapu Fini is something you need to invest a little bit of time in, a Calm Mind, maybe get some turns for leftovers. And that's going to be really big if it can stay safe and attacks can head towards this Protect from Trista.
Garchomp protects as Tapu Koko goes for a Volt Switch into the Tapu Fini, giving Cameron the chance to save chance to save that Tapu Koko for later and maybe bring back that electric terrain, depending on how Trista decides to play this. It seems like Tapu Fini is content to stick around for now, though, as Metagross takes the field in that Tapu Koko's place. Dragon Pulse from the Salamence into the protecting Garchomp, and Tapu Fini with that Moonblast going to attack the Metagross, formerly that Tapu Koko, for just a little bit of health.
I think Trista really needs to start looking at the Salamence. It's been putting such good pressure down with that Dragon Pulse. It's actually forcing the way she plays her Garchomp. Her hand is being forced every single turn to see how this goes. And Metagross is still in a pretty solid position. A lot of Metagross carrying Bullet Punch. Now Garchomp's low. It's not getting any more recovery from the Leech Seed because there was a switch in play. Maybe we'll start picking up knockouts, and that's why we see switches coming in from Trista here.
Celesteela taking the place of that Garchomp, happy to take a couple of Dragon Pulses if it has to. Bullet Punch from the Metagross into the Celesteela, looking to knock out that Garchomp before it can attack, but instead targeting that Celesteela with a Flamethrower from that Salamence. Cameron reading that switch beautifully, bringing Celesteela down to below half its health, and it's going to eat Wiki Berry, so that must have been exactly 25% of its health. Muddy Water from the Tapu Fini misses the Metagross, instead targets that Salamence. It's not very effective, and there's no accuracy drop.
Yeah, 51 hit points we'll get it on that Celesteela. Very nice round number for me to do some on-the-fly math there. But again, another turn where Salamence is ignored. And Celesteela coming in, yes, it got the activation of its Wiki Berry there, so it is a little bit healthier than it could have been. But another very smart double target from Cameron to basically put the pressure on, really turn the screw a little bit early in the game, and basically read the prediction, make predictions, reading the switches very, very well. Knowing that something's coming in, you can cover your bases. You saw it detect or protect last turn. Don't allow it, and then keep on going. So, very smart play to keep going for actually the right-hand slot.
Metagross protecting this turn. Salamence using Flamethrower again to attack that Celesteela. It's going to bring it back down to maybe about 40% of its health, and Tapu Fini, reading the Protect, goes for a Calm Mind to boost its special attack and special defense one stage further.
That's something Tapu Fini needs to do, because we do know Trista is aware, of course, of that Tapu Koko in the back.
And hidden
estamos aquí, no nos hemos ido.
Estamos
viendo que comemos.
And an added bonus.
No abandonó.
It did end for now, so it's not really a big deal. I don't think it affects too much of the play that we have at the moment. But when Tapu Koko comes in, it will reset it. And of course, if you bring it in before the terrain leaves, then you don't reset it and you remain on the old counter, meaning a limited amount of turns to capitalize on it. Now, with the combination that Trista have on the field, Tapu Koko is something she really does.
Eso era como un popcorn ahora. Pena sale el sol y te vas. Yo no estoy pensando en lo que estás haciendo. Si conmigo te quedas o con otro tú te vas. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Se tildeó?
Ayer fui buscando bronce y encontré oro.
¿A dónde?
Ahí en el lago.
Chao. Qué casualidad que yo no estaba ahí. ¿Cuánto comiste?
To deal with. I think Tapu Fini setting up with these Calm Minds means not only can it maybe withstand a hit, but it might be able to get a knockout in retaliation. It's a very close play, depending, of course, how this game comes down to the wire.
Bullet Punch into the Celesteela, trying to do just a little bit more damage, so the flamethrower from that Salamence will be enough to knock it out. Will it do enough damage? It is! Celesteela getting that knockout. Tapu Fini left on Trista's side of the field to try and attack with a Muddy Water, but it misses that Metagross for the second time in this game. Going to connect with that Salamence, and it does just not enough for that knockout.
Even with the Calm Minds, we see that Tapu Fini just isn't this major offensive threat, and knowing that the Calm Minds aren't enough to boost it up, it's very, very interesting to see how these calculations will come into play. Now, both the Pokemon on the field are very low on health indeed, but
Chavera, estás en sintonía, eres el fiel seguidor.
With Tapu Koko in play in the back, Garchomp is probably readily able to get knocked out. Of course, if the Tapu Koko is carrying something like the Dazzling Gleam. Now, the interesting decision that as we kind of play out this game, I think Tristan's going to have to make is it even carrying Dazzling Gleam? Because a lot of people have given up on that towards the end of the season.
No te llevaste Master para capturar ese poco de caída que hay por ahí, pues.
No
te llevaste Master para capturar ese poco de caída que hay por ahí.
To lower the speed of that Garchomp, of that Tapu Fini. In this case, it's only going to connect with the Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini isn't really the fastest Pokemon to begin with. We know that Tapu Koko is faster already, so might not be that helpful. But Salamence dodges the Muddy Water.
That's really big that it doesn't get knocked out there. And Cameron, with 4 Pokemon remaining, is in a very solid position indeed to not try and deal with this.
Hey, Verde, que como en tu casa.
He's just not provided enough for Trista. That's the important thing. It hasn't had enough value. And I think Cameron's played this game absolutely fantastically. Salamence Metagross as a combination have been really nasty together. Of course, the avoidance a little bit. But I really like how the Bulldoze set up the Metagross. How it can play all around Metagross. And Trista's really played into it, I think. She's allowed herself to be red, and she doesn't have many options to stop that.
Bullet Punch from the Metagross into that Garchomp, who tried to protect for a second turn, but unfortunately was not able to do so. It gets knocked out. Salamence next with the Roost to restore its health. That's not something you see often on Salamence at all, and this is the perfect time to use it. It's just holding on barely. Muddy Water again from that Tapu Fini, again missing this Salamence. Finally connects with that Metagross though, knocks it out, but with 3-on-1, that Tapu Fini might not just have enough energy left to finish this matchup.
Yeah, there's so many things on Cameron's team that can basically deal with this. Garchomp is actually one of the lesser options that deal with Tapu Fini. Obviously, Tech Rage would do very nicely because it's not affected by this Calm Mind boost. But gets some Tech Rage damage down with obviously Tectonic Rage, the Z move. And then Salamence, can just start chipping away at it. It's not going to go for anything with the Dragon type attacks. It's got Flamethrower, which is also not very effective. And you do have to wonder if he's going to...
Dominicano. No, es que ahí donde estaba pensando en comprar las pintas, pero nada más pinta. Es viernes, así que debe ser algo tarde. Dice te manda que hay pan, huevo de manzana en jamoncito. En verde, manda todo eso. Estoy pegado y no hay nada. Pero llegó tarde y me cerraron la pizzería. Pero esto no entiendo por qué. Tengo que pedirte disculpas, no sé por qué se me tilde a veces. Vamos a actualizar. ¿Dónde? Papá, ¿cuál es esa? El centro. ¿Qué tiene? Ah, no, sí, pero... La gente que es Dioxy, la gente que se necrofma, que va a tener que ver Dioxy en Alola. Vamos a meter a Alola en Dioxy, pues.
be keeping things secret. Bulldoze may be the best play for it before Tapu Koko comes into play.
Well, here is that Z move from Cameron. Like you said, it's that Tectonic Rage going to target down that Tapu Fini, deal a nice amount of damage. It is a physical attack as well, which means we don't have to worry about those special defense boosts, but might be enough to just outright knock it out. We'll have to see.
Yeah, it's going to be very close, but many Tapu Fini cannot take a Tectonic Rage comfortably, and about 60% of its health remaining was enough to get knocked out, so 2-0 for Cameron Jahadi in this set. Trista, you know, 1-1 now. Her Worlds Invite, I had some interesting numbers about these two. They were both on that kind of lower end of players coming into it, and they came in with Trista 520 championship points, Cameron just the 533. So these are the players I touched on a little bit earlier with, they have a point to prove coming along to these tournaments. That game I thought was very well played, even though the scoreline not quite reflective of it, and Cameron tapping into this new team very, very well indeed. Capitalizing on something that's the new hotness, playing it so well and seeing why it has one of these really good matchups.
Yeah, I found it really interesting that, you know, we didn't see Tapu Bulu at all. He, quite frankly, didn't even need it for that matchup.
Not at all.
And he really didn't need that weakness policy boost either. He certainly utilized it in Game 2, but Game 1, it felt like he was making all the right reads and just playing that team so that
all of the tournaments, so I have a pretty good testing group that I get together with. I've been around to a lot of leagues, you know, travel. That's kind of how I prepare, just a lot of extensive testing.
Just play test until you've seen every deck possible.
The day before the flight, I spent, I think, 8 hours practicing against like 6 different decks.
We practiced for 11 hours straight.
For practice, I do a lot of math on the decks, like which numbers you can hit with different decks.
Mainly I do best of 3s with friends and review matchups in my head.
I like to look at what the meta looks like online, see what other people are playing.
My dad really helps me practice a lot because when I practice with him, he gives me lots of tips and he builds my decks.
I normally practice against people online, but when I can, I practice against my dad.
I love to test with my dad, also love to test with my little brother.
To succeed in a Pokemon TCG at least, you need a lot of sleep. Not the ones you flip a coin on, but the ones you get in your bed.
Big thing about succeeding is having fun, not taking ththings too serious. Put yourself in your opponent's shoes. You gotta think, is that the optimal play for them, or like, what's their best play?
Bring a watch. Time is the thing. I mean, 50-minute rounds, you know, you just gotta learn how to scoop when you need to scoop.
You need to have a good attitude, stay focused, never give up, and play your heart's content.
when building their teams are considering Trick Room more as an afterthought, prioritizing a Pokemon like Porygon 2, who has that amazing download ability to boost either its attack or its special attack when it's sent out on the field, giving it that Eviolite item so it boosts its defenses, and just saying, well, if I get Trick Room up, this is great. I have this one, maybe two Pokemon on my team that can take advantage of that, but I'm not running this team where I absolutely have to get Trick Room up no matter what. And, I mean, in my experience, I've really only seen that Mental Herb item on Pokemon like Mimikyu, where it just has to get Trick Room up, and if you don't get Trick Room up, it usually means that you have a much harder battle ahead of you.
Well, Mimikyu's very interesting for a number of reasons, and not to go into just one Pokemon too much, but the big thing for me is ability that it has. Now, a lot of Pokemon have very interesting abilities, and we in the North American International Championships.
Yeah, Slowking, it's so much fun. It's one of those Pokemon that you don't see at the beginning of the season at all, but it, along with its, I don't know if it's like a sibling or relative maybe, Slowbro, can really do a great job with Trick Room and also carrying a little bit of offensive pressure along with it. One of the downsides, I think, to Porygon 2 is that if you don't get that download boost, your Ice Beams aren't going to be dealing as much damage. If there's no electric terrain, your Thunderbolts won't be dealing as much damage, and it really becomes a liability to you to know how to play it, know when you need to keep it around, and it's just one more thing you really have to worry about sort of when you construct your team.
Well, that's something that I think has been interesting on Porygon, is the adaptation of movesets. Now, towards the beginning of the season, when people first started Psyche to the party, in Psychic terrain doing a ton
seems like an interesting choice. It's a water fighting type Pokemon, but that fighting type, it's going to have a weakness to a lot of the Alolan Guardian Pokemon. Seems like a very risky play. We've talked a lot about how these trainers will decide on a Pokemon and build their team around it. Do you think that's the case with Gary?
I think that's something I'm not sure if he builds the team around it so much, but I think what he does is find an answer to his problems that not everyone has looked at. Instead of using a standard answer and doing the square peg in round hole situation, I think he's very, very good at kind of adapting to the metagame and pushing on with it. It's very, very smart play by him. Like Flygon was one of those answers that he wanted to something like the Garchomp. Instead of playing an odd Garchomp mirror where you're both tectonic raging each other, then you're in a very, very good position indeed to push on from there.
All right, well, as these trainers get started, round 3, I believe they're both at 2-0 right now, so had a great morning so far, but it's not over yet. Being on stream, you have that added pressure, knowing that these are the games that really count. Gary, no stranger to the stream. Leonardo, I can't say I've seen him around much before, but I'm pretty sure that's because he came from overseas.
Yes, I mean, Gary's been one of these players who's been putting up good numbers at our regionals this year, and that's how he got the invite. That's how he managed to push on and really capitalize on these interesting picks that he made. I know he had some appearances at regionals we were at, and we got to look at his team, so in a very solid position throughout the year. But both these players, aren't going to be going down without a fight. That's so important that if you get a winning start at the World Championships, you need to carry it on. It's absolutely essential that you don't let things slip.
Yeah, even though it's only round 3, it's just 2 losses, and then your run at the Pokemon World Championships is over. You don't want to take any of those losses early if you can help it. So both these trainers, it's great to see how they're having so much fun talking to each other before their match. Even though the pressure's on, it looks like they're having fun.
Yeah, that's very important. It's the World Championships, everyone's here to play their best, and I don't think any malice is ever intended in a match of Pokemon. So we do get to see some very interesting teams from the pair of them, and that's going to be something that really defines this game if Gary can bring his Stranger Things to the World Championships and actually do well with them.
All right, here we go. This match is starting. Gary will be on the left-hand side of your screen, and his team does indeed have that Poliwrath, along with a Mimikyu, a Tapu Koko, a Pelipper, a Smeargle, and a Snorlax against Leonardo's team of the Garchomp, the Tapu Lele, the Celesteela, the Smeargle, the Arcanine, and the Snorlax. Smeargle not one of those Pokemon we've seen as often going into this season, but making a great appearance here during the round 3 of Swiss at the Pokemon World Championships.
Well, Smeargle's been able to open up a number of options for players this year. Doesn't have access to Dark Void like in previous years, and that's something that a lot of players thought would rule it out entirely. It does still have access to Spore, and it does still get the benefits, of course, from the Moody boosts, which can cause some interesting chaos. Both players bringing one, though, could match up really, really nastily against each other. So I'll be curious to see exactly how they come together, who maybe wins a war for getting a Spore off. Gary's team, though, has got to be talked about a little bit more. The Pelipper being paired up with a Poliwrath is so essential. The Poliwrath is known to deal some good damage if it can get in a position to do that. And boosted by the rain, that's even more damage. So I want to see if he can get it going, get the ball rolling on it. It has been talked about that sometimes bringing a Pokemon in Team Preview is just there to force your opponent's hand a little bit more. And that's something I want to see if he can get it going. If he can pick what Leonardo is going to bring to try and shut down this Poliwrath potential, then he's able to answer that immediately in the lead and not get caught short by it.
Well, here we go. Game 1 of round 3 of Swiss here at the Pokemon World Championships. Tapu Lele and Smeargle out on the field for Leonardo, and Smeargle and Poliwrath out on Gary's side of the field. Talk about a very interesting lead. No weather up on the field, just that psychic terrain to boost Tapu Lele's psychic attacks, which that Poliwrath is weak to.
Yeah, well, Poliwrath doesn't have, it has access to Swift Swim, but it won't be active already without the Pelipper in place, so it's common to see them maybe brought together a little bit more. I say common with a rogue Pokemon like Poliwrath in play. We do have that Smeargle matchup though, and that's where things certainly get interesting. The targeting on what they're going for, the potential spores on each other, the potential taunts, the potential fake outs can get really nasty as Leonardo's Smeargle puts itself in a great position.
Yeah, Gary's Smeargle goes right to sleep from the Spore from Leonardo's Smeargle,
Mira,
and is unable to move this turn. Tapu Lele going for a blast psychic type attack against that Poliwrath. You know, still an attack that Poliwrath is weak to. But let's talk about the Moody boosts.
Yeah, we do get the accuracy drop there on Leonardo's Smeargle. That can be annoying for a Spore potentially missing. And then we get the evasion boost over on Gary's side of the field. And the evasion boost is actually really helpful in that it may not get hit by other things. So I'm interested to see if that will actually pay off. It's only a little bit right now, but as they start adding up, that's where things can get really, really interesting. Really, you have to play to your outs when that's a big thing.
Speaking of outs, that Poliwrath is getting out of the field, and Pelipper is going to take its place, bringing with it that Drizzle ability and bringing the rain onto the field. So Poliwrath comes back, Swift Swim will kick in, and it'll be a tad bit faster if it wasn't for that Tailwind coming out on Leonardo's side of the field. Smeargle wakes up and goes for a Spore, and it connects with that Tapu Lele, so it will be unable to move this turn as it takes a little nap.
Yeah, well, Smeargle immediately waking up is so big for Gary. Means that Tapu Lele is going to be a little bit under pressure. A special attack boost, and also helpful. Evasiveness falling for Leonardo's Smeargle. Probably Gary's getting an essential boost in the speed going up. With the sharp rise, it actually means in the Tailwind, it may be able, if it's matching, to actually outspeed or go before Leonardo's. Now, if he can get a Tailwind up with his Pelipper, he's guaranteed to be going first. And with Tapu, what Gary really needs to do is capitalize on this turn. Throw out both a Spore and a Tailwind, you're guaranteed one.
Unfortunately, though, that speed boost did come at the cost of losing one of its evasiveness boosts. So still, you know, a decently agile Smeargle, let's say, able to jump around on the field, maybe dodge some of those attacks. But in this situation, I don't think you're worried as much about evasiveness. You want that speed. You want to be able to counteract the Tailwind on the opposing side of the field. But Smeargle on Leonardo's side still able to move first thanks to the Tailwind. Spore connects with Smeargle on Gary's side of the field, and Smeargle is asleep for the turn. Pelipper free to do whatever it wants this turn, as Tapu Lele is still fast asleep, and Pelipper does not go for a Tailwind. Instead uses Hurricane to target down that Smeargle and knock it out almost, but more importantly gets that fusion. So it may not even be able to attack the next turn at all, which could be huge given the evasiveness boost that it just picked up.
Yeah, the big thing about Smeargle here is that it doesn't get knocked out. It's most likely going to be carrying a focus sash. That's a staple item on the Smeargle. But if it goes to do anything and actually ends up hitting itself in fusion, it could knock itself out. Palipper not going for the tailwind there, knowing that it needs to get rid of the Smeargle is so important. And try and get rid of that Smeargle while Tapu Lele remains asleep, which means when we do get to the end of tailwind, Gary Smeargle could potentially take over the game. That's something that he really needs to capitalize on, and he's looking for that Hurricane to pay off for him.
Pelipper leaving the field, no Hurricane this turn. Instead, Tapu Koko taking its place. Tapu Koko making it so any Pokemon that touches the ground cannot be put to sleep by Spore moving forward in this game, provided the terrain does not change. Smeargle on Leonardo's side is confused, and it hits itself in confusion, but does not knock itself out. Smeargle on Gary's side of the field is still asleep, and that Tapu Lele is asleep as well.
Well, this is really interesting. That he had the Tapu Koko in the back and didn't switch it in earlier. We do see the accuracy falling on Leonardo's side. And of course the speed boost again from Gary Smeargle. If that can wake up and start using things, it won't be able to put things to sleep because all the Pokemon we have they are benefiting from that terrain. But that speed boost means that it doesn't really mind about the tailwind at all. So any other useful move it has will be able to do a lot of help to his team. It's going to be in a great position. But Tapu Koko needs to capitalize on this.
Smeargle is confused once again on Leonardo's side of the field, but it is able to use a Spiky Shield to protect itself from any damage this turn. Smeargle on Gary's side of the field finally waking up and using Follow Me to ensure that it will be the target of any single target attack, such as the Moonblast, which Smeargle aptly dodges. Tapu Koko finishes up this turn with a Dazzling Gleam to connect with that Tapu Lele.
Well, Gary making use of his Moody boost here. We do see the evasiveness boost that he picked up earlier coming through and avoiding the Moonblast, which it redirected to itself. It's speed now going back down a single stage, and the speed from Leonardo's going up. So there is just one stage in it between Gary and Leonardo's, but Tailwind is over. That means this Smeargle's liable to get knocked out by this Tapu Koko, but this Tapu Lele is still under threat of being... I mean, Follow Me would be going before because it's a priority move anyway. But if the terrain was changed for any reason, then it may be able to, you know, put it back to sleep.
Smeargle on Leonardo's side of the field will leave the field, and Celesteela will take its place. Celesteela, though, does not make any connection with the ground, so Smeargle on Gary's side of the field could decide to put it to sleep the next turn, provided it's able to stick around. Tapu Koko with the Thunder going to deal a ton of damage to that Tapu Lele, and it is enough for the knockout.
Well, this is one of those Tapu Koko that capitalize on the weather in play. The last turn of rain was so important, I think, for Gary to be in a good position there. And Gary, his Smeargle's been sticking around. It hasn't taken any damage yet, and it's got another evasiveness boost. It's going to be so hard to hit this Smeargle and actually able to knock it out. You know what's really going to struggle to deal with it is the opposing Smeargle from Leonardo's side. The interesting thing is it can't really Spore. Tapu Koko's going to be going before it, but Tapu Koko also wants to do with Celesteela.
Yeah, Follow Me, I think, is going to be Leonardo's best pick to have that Smeargle do something at least for the turn. And that is what the Smeargle does, wagging its tail around, telling Gary's Pokemon,
no, pero ese es con Poliwrath. ¿Por qué Politoed y no Golduck? Por el acceso a lucha. Posiblemente, yo no, es lo que pienso yo, pues no le he metido mente a ese team.
Giving Gary the opportunity to send his Tapu Koko back into his party, preserve it for later, and maybe send out that Poliwrath or some other Pokemon on his team to help deal with the Celesteela. Again, it's going to be the Pelipper because, you know, that rain, it did disappear, but now it's right back.
Yeah, he really needs the rain to set up for Poliwrath, and I think
claro, Poliwrath
is certainly curious. Celesteela actually able to attack this turn with a heavy slam. It's going to be going towards...
Creo que la lluvia también se había ido, por eso necesita cambiar para que la lluvia vuelva.
Doesn't want to try and hit things such as the Smeargle, who's getting an accuracy boost, as if Spore wasn't already 100%.
Solo le queda Celesteela, ¿no?
Sometimes it's the thought that counts.
Yeah, it really means that it's going to be a big deal. I think this is a little bit different to previous formats where Dark Void's accuracy was important. But now, of course, it changes a little bit. If this Smeargle can stick around till Electric Terrain runs out, might have to find an opening to Spore before he brings the Tapu Koko back in. In the same vein, Gary may want to try and up the pace a little bit, just get all of his damaging Pokemon in while they're both at preferred terrain, and of course the rain is up for the Poliwrath. I think that's the big thing here, but he may not want to give away too much information on the Poliwrath, and I think that's why he showed it, but then switched it out.
It's certainly something that Leonardo has to make sure he plays around, and something for Gary to sort of use to limit what he thinks Leonardo is going to do, because whatever Leonardo thinks can help deal with that Poliwrath at this point should probably be kept safe until that Poliwrath makes a second appearance. Spore into the protecting Celesteela from that Smeargle on Gary's side of the field. Pelipper with the Scald going to attack that Garchomp for about 50% of its health, and Garchomp, Rock Slide will connect with the Smeargle. It does connect with the Pelipper, but it fails to knock either of them out.
Well, the one thing I'm really interested in here is that we haven't seen a Tailwind coming out of Gary's Pelipper, and that would have been a really, really great time to use it. Now, of course, with the speed boost that we did see on Gary's Smeargle that are still in play, because it's not been taken off the field yet, without the electric terrain, he can start putting some things to sleep. That's really, really important for him to be able to do that. And I just want to see if he's going to capitalize on that turn. Of course, Celesteela
como que tienen prohibido decir los sets de los bichos. Por ahí está claro que ese Pelipper es claro.
Pelipper is going for, if not Tailwind. Putting out damage every single time with Pelipper certainly seems like an interesting option.
Spore finally going to put that Celesteela fast to sleep, and Pelipper outspeeding that Garchomp again with the Scald for the knockout.
Yes, that's given up the ghost there entirely. Pelipper moving before Garchomp, not going to be setting up Tailwind because it's got a Choice Scarf on it. It's locked itself into Scald there and has been able to capitalize off it. So maybe doing a little more damage than usual, but really, really big knowledge to be giving away there. That's a Choice Scarf Pelipper, and it's literally there to help out its friend, the Poliwrath. But it's doing a little bit differently to some of the other rain combinations we've seen. Of course, the Celesteela is asleep. Last Pokemon.
Yo no me acuerdo si es que no, me parece que no vi la última.
You know, it's interesting. Before this match, we were talking about how speed control works. You know, how some trainers, instead of going for a Tailwind, will use Choice Scarf. Here we have the Tailwind user deciding, I want to be Tailwind, my team is fast enough with Swift Swim. You know, maybe Smeargle will get some of those speed boosts. I'll just give my Pelipper a Choice Scarf. Why not?
Yeah, that's so important. All come together, and now Gary's given up that information.
Que lo usaba el gordo del
peleador. It was very, very obvious that it was very obvious that that's the Choice Scarf holder. And that information's so important.
No sé si
both these players kind of gambling a little bit with their Smeargles, I think. And the interesting part for me is how exactly are these Smeargles trained, and how did they come together? Because both of these Smeargles, we saw them on the field together a lot, and in every instance the Moody boost came through for Leonardo beforehand, and I think that's certainly an indication that what we actually have there is the Pokemon a little bit differently trained. Maybe a full investment in speed training from Leonardo, with a little bit less from Gary, where he's invested it somewhere else. He's outsped most of the things he considers threats, but he's left the matchup against Smeargle and accepted that he'll be moving second every time. So with that knowledge, when you come into a turn one like we had in the last game, as both players lock in their team so quickly,
that was incredibly fast.
If you know you're going to lose that kind of Spore war as such, then you're able to bring in Tapu Koko immediately and not even play that game. Just admit you don't want to play it, bring in Tapu Koko, and not have to worry about losing out on that every single time.
You know, given how quickly these trainers, you know, locked in their teams, makes me wonder, maybe that's a strategy Gary's planning on using moving forward, leading with the Smeargle and the Snorlax on his side of the field. No sign of that Tapu Koko. Against Leonardo's lead, again, the Tapu Lele and that Smeargle.
Very interesting to see how it's been changed up by Gary. Bringing that Snorlax, something he didn't bring at all last game. But maybe he feels he's in a great position to set that up. You know, you can spend some time putting Snorlax to sleep, but at the same time, it's a naturally resting Pokemon. You've got to actually knock it out while it's asleep. That's something that I'll be curious to see if it does come together for him. At the same time, you know, once it's set up, you do want to deal with it, and the switch could be huge here for Gary.
Tapu Koko bringing the electric terrain with it, not playing the Who Spore Will Spore first game. Gary instead going to say, you know what, maybe I'll just use Fake Out to stop the Tapu Lele from attacking.
There's no psychic terrain.
You're right, another benefit is switching that terrain. Smeargle unable to put the opposing Smeargle to sleep, and Booty Boost time. It looks like nothing too important on Leonardo's side of the field. Gary's Smeargle, again, getting that defensive boost, losing its speed, which could come into play moving forwards, if Gary didn't already know if his Smeargle was slower.
Yes, and I think that's very, very important. To see that one come out, knowing what Gary did in that turn, losing the speed ball isn't a big deal here. He'd already known he'd lost it to the opposing Smeargle, so he very, very wisely brought in that Tapu Koko. Getting the fake out off, giving up the information, being able to actually successfully use fake out because of the loss of psychic terrain, which blocks his priority moves, was so, so good there for Gary in this game. Bringing in Mimikyu, showing off all 4 of his Pokemon right off the bat.
Alright, so Mimikyu Snorlax, a strategy that Gary has built into this team. Tapu Koko with the Volt Switch. This could be the return of that Snorlax to the field. You know, Mimikyu, Snorlax, great friends, love to work together. Trick Room, maybe a Psych Up on that Mimikyu. Sometimes you'll see paired with Snorlax's Belly Drum or Curse or other stat boosting moves. Smeargle revealing that it has Tailwind on Leonardo's side of the field, going to boost the speed of his Pokemon, and Tapu Lele with that Moonblast going to target down the Snorlax and leave it at approximately 60% of its health. Moody time yet again. Special defense boost and drop on Leonardo's side of the field.
Yeah, the defense is just being changed there. Usually a Pokemon that's not too worried about. And this is the speed and the evasiveness that are the big ones here. Snorlax coming in is big, shows that I think he's going to turn to the Trick Room mode, and that makes that introduction of Tailwind a lot more interesting, especially for Gary, who's probably going to be enjoying seeing that come to play. Mimikyu's disguise hasn't been busted, and it's very difficult with a Smeargle and Tapu Lele together to really shut it down. Follow Me's not going to help, you can't spore it while we have electric terrain in play. So he should be in a pretty solid position to try and basically set up Trick Room to deal with this. Now he has to safely as well get some assistance on Snorlax, but if Trick Room's what he wants, it's Trick Room he's going to get.
Celesteela taking the field on Leonardo's side of the field, probably a better Pokemon to handle the impending Trick Room. Tapu Lele with the Moonblast into the Mimikyu to break its disguise, but Mimikyu more than happy to go for a Trick Room here, but first its buddy Snorlax going to pound on its stomach a few times, boost its attack all the way to the top at the cost of its own health, and immediately consume that berry in a pinch to get half of its health back. Finally, Mimikyu, there is that Trick Room.
Yeah, but this Snorlax is in a good position to deal with Tapu Lele. Snorlax has always struggled against Celesteela unless left in a one-on-one situation, so that's a very smart switch from Leonardo. This is actually the first Trick Room we've seen this weekend so far, and Trick Room is one of those interesting speed control moves we touched on a little bit before, but it completely reverses the turn order. So the slower Pokemon move before, and the faster Pokemon move later in the turn. So that's something that with Snorlax, a naturally very slow Pokemon, you're going to be able to capitalize on. It may have to spend a couple of turns kind of building up itself again with a potential recycle, but it's not going to be this one.
Not going to be this one, as Return crashes into the Celesteela. It's not very effective, but it still does so much damage. And now we get the first Z move of this game, that Mimikyu, feeling that it's holding the Ghostium Z Crystal. But the big question is, what move is it going to be? It's going to be a never-ending nightmare.
And this is going to double up on the Celesteela, making sure that one of his Pokemon to really answer Trick Room, I think, is taken out of play comfortably, still no longer resisting it. And the combination of Return and Never-Ending Nightmare doing so much damage, while Tapu Lele really left moving last in the turn, getting a Moonblast in, and it's not enough to knock out this Snorlax.
It's not enough to knock it out, and Snorlax is going to move first next turn, barring any priority moves on Leonardo's side of the field, which we haven't seen yet. Maybe that Smeargle has something. But Snorlax able to use Recycle, find that berry, and get its health right back up.
Well, we do know, of course, that Leonardo's Smeargle doesn't have access to the Fake Out. That's something we've seen its moves. It reveals Spore and Tailwind, and it's just something you think you'd seen it before if that was going to be the case. And with a Tapu Lele on your team, it's highly unlikely that you'd bring that. So Snorlax is probably in a pretty good position to set up a Recycle, but at the same time, you know, you do have to be worried about this Smeargle. If it can stick around to the point where the Electric Terrain has ended, Tapu Lele could be under threat from the Mimikyu with something like a Shadow Claw. And even the Mimikyu is just in such a solid position to start trying to deal with things on Leonardo's side. I think the use of the Z move very, very wise. Now Celesteela's gone one of the biggest threats to Gary's team, probably removed from play quite comfortably.
Smeargle with the spiky shield on Leonardo's side of the field, trying to stall out the Trick Room for as long as possible. Snorlax using that Recycle to find its berry, get it back, and munch down on it right away. So Snorlax back up to above half its health, happy to try and take another Moonblast from that Tapu Lele, but play rough from the Mimikyu, trying to knock it out. It misses it. Tapu Lele with the attack drop. Moonblast free to connect with either of the Pokemon on Gary's side of the field. It will connect with that Snorlax, but it does not knock it out.
No, it doesn't actually do quite 50%. And the Tailwind ending is sort of interesting. I think Leonardo was going to be moving last anyway with this setup, particularly the Mimikyu. Smeargle, though, getting an evasiveness boost on Leonardo's side of the field is very big. Now it means you're going to have to hit it twice through boosted evasiveness. That's something that's really difficult to do at times. And while you're doing that, the electric terrain has actually run out from Gary's Tapu Koko, so I think he may be forced to at least try and get some damage down, maybe sacrifice something here.
Follow Me from that Smeargle will ensure that Tapu Lele is able to attack, provided that Smeargle is out on the field. Snorlax taking it safe this turn, going for a recycle to find that Agua Berry and to consume it once again, slowly bringing itself back up to full health. Mimikyu with the play rough, Smeargle dodges it, and Tapu Lele happy to go for that Moonblast again, targeting down that Snorlax.
Well, Play Rough's an interesting choice here. He's forced to use Play Rough over a Ghost-type attack such as Shadow Claw, which we saw through the Never-Ending Nightmare, because it's not going to affect Smeargle. So every single turn, he has to respect that Follow Me coming out. He's forced to use Play Rough, which isn't a 100% accurate move. And with the evasiveness boost from Leonardo's Smeargle, then it's pretty hard for him to hit it. To hit it twice is going to be a big deal. While this is all going on, Snorlax is slowly recovering amounts of health, a little bit more because Moonblast isn't doing 50%. But that's really not the damage he needs. He needs to find some time to weave in some damage before he gets dragged into a 3 versus 3. I think that's really important for Gary at this point in this game.
Definitely, and Trick Room, I would imagine, will be running out soon as well. So Smeargle, if it's able to stick around for a couple more turns, might be able to just spore the Snorlax, spore the Mimikyu, and just hope for the best. For now, Smeargle is going to use that Follow Me to protect its new partner, Garchomp, who just switched out onto the field. Snorlax, again, using that Recycle, again, getting its health back. That really is the best option for it right now. Even though it's attempting to start attacking and start whittling away at your opponent's health, you really have to focus on keeping Snorlax around so it can keep using that boost. Play Rough misses the knockout on that Smeargle, but it will connect this turn. So as Trick Room ends, Smeargle is one hit away from being knocked out, but Gary not in the best spot.
Well, the evasiveness drop makes it a little more manageable, I think, for Gary there. Helps out Leonardo's now only at one stage of boosted evasiveness, so it's a little bit harder to hit. The one thing I'm curious about, though, is how he safely sets up Trick Room. So to do that, he needs Mimikyu to stay around. That's the important thing. But then he has to sacrifice Snorlax and its Belly Drum boost to basically avoid the potential Spore coming out from the Smeargle. That's the only way, and it's such a hard decision to make as a player, what you prioritize more. And I think after all this setup, keeping Snorlax around, it didn't get out much damage with its Belly Drum in play. But Smeargle's already low, we do know that Tapu Lele's already low as well, and Garchomp's the only one that's a little bit difficult to deal with. So I'd rather try and get that out, but Smeargle not even going for the Spore.
Follow Me from that Smeargle, again becoming the center of attention, and Leonardo going straight for the Z move, that Tectonic Rage, going to try and knock out one of these Pokemon, maybe trying to use this to stop the Trick Room.
Yes, that's something that is going to be important. If that's one of your few ways out that you see and you want to keep yourself safe, I think that's one of the better plays. It is going to be connecting with the Mimikyu, so that looks like it's going to be the answer to Trick Room, not sporing it, but just going for the Tectonic Rage. Of course, the Disguise is already busted, and an easy knockout for this Garchomp, but whatever Snorlax does now is going to be so important.
Snorlax misses the return on that Smeargle. Moody Boost getting an accuracy boost and a special defense drop.
Yeah, that's a big play that didn't connect there. And getting rid of the Trick Room one way or another is probably very, very smart. But without the Trick Room setup, it does mean this incoming Tapu Koko from Gary is probably in a better position. You kind of give yourself a couple of chances to do well here. If it's one of these Tapu Koko carrying Dazzling Gleam, you get one chance to hit the Smeargle there. You do, of course, have control of the terrain for now. We know Tapu Lele is in the back to potentially switch it up, so Garchomp could swap out for Tapu Lele to avoid the Dazzling Gleam, to allow the Spore to come through from Smeargle. But if Smeargle can do that and avoid, of course, the potential Dazzling Gleam from Gary's Tapu Koko because of its one stage of boosted evasiveness, it's going to be in a fantastic position. Now, that really looks like one of the best outs for Leonardo, getting his terrain in play and capitalizing off that as quickly as possible. Not just with Follow Me, but going after something with this Spore and basically opening up more turns where he can attack for free.
Yeah, while Follow Me is great, its effects only really last for 1 turn. Spore gives you the option of having that Pokemon asleep for up to 4 turns. So using it in a situation like this could be beneficial. Instead, that Garchomp and that Tapu Koko protect, and Smeargle goes for the Tailwind, so it will have at least one more shot of putting something on the field to sleep, provided that Leonardo is able to switch the terrain around appropriately.
Well, that Smeargle setting up Tailwind is in a beautiful position to basically help Leonardo get into a good position. This Garchomp, if it's not a Choice Scarf variety, which it's not, we saw, of course, the Tectonic Rage earlier, will now be able to outspeed Tapu Koko, and I'll be curious to see if he knocks out his own Smeargle maybe this turn to try and get that damage down with Earthquake. That's something that's so important. If you can keep Smeargle safe with a spiky shield, then it'll be sticking around for another turn of potential spores when you get the Psychic Terrain back into play. But that now means that Garchomp becomes such a big threat, and Leonardo needs to capitalize on these 3 turns that he has to deal the damage under the Tailwind.
3 turns could decide if we're moving on to Game 3 here in Swiss Round 3 at the Pokemon World Championships. Smeargle defying all odds, sticking around on the field for a lot longer, I think, than anybody really expected in this matchup. Tapu Koko, though, not wanting to stare it down any longer. Gary switching it out and sending in his own Smeargle as Leonardo Smeargle goes for a spiky shield. So Leonardo really playing that Smeargle defensively, allowing the Garchomp to use Earthquake to deal a little bit of damage to the Snorlax, a lot of damage to the opposing Smeargle on Gary's side of the field. But return from that Snorlax will knock out the Garchomp.
Yes, that's the big thing here, is he knows that's kind of the way to go about it. And it looks like, you know, the player's feeling pretty confident in this here. There is going to be the return of the Psychic Terrain when Tapu Lele comes back into play. But that only means that we do know that Gary's Smeargle is going to be able to potentially Spore a little bit here. And it looks like both the players, you know their endgame pattern here. Know exactly what's going to happen. Tapu Lele is going to come back in, change the terrain, and Leonardo's basically going to be able to start sporing things. It's the quickest thing on the field. It's got not only a speed boost, but it's also had access to that Spore. So in this turn, he can basically Spore the Snorlax and knock out the Smeargle with Tapu Lele. And then the following turn, he can start knocking out Snorlax. It's really a closed game for Leonardo in this one. The control of the terrain, so important as we approach the endgame scenario in this one.
Terrain is really one of the keys to the game. We keep talking about it, but
it's one of those things that's been so important, though, as people discuss what's the best Tapu Pokemon. Tapu Koko coming back in to keep it safe from the Spore, though. And while it looks like that might have been Leonardo's only out, Tapu Koko is going to put an end to that one.
Smeargle with the fake out on Gary's side of the field for the not knockout on that Tapu Lele. It will flinch this turn and be unable to attack. Smeargle on Leonardo's side of the field using that Follow Me, but because the fake out has a higher priority than Follow Me, it is not able to protect its partner.
Yeah, that's so important to see how that comes together. Smeargle, now it's in a great position, gets the evasiveness boost that it needs. But, Gary just needs to stall out the Tailwind in this instance. There's not enough. Now there's no way for
Leonardo to change the terrain. Pro.
He had that one turn where if Gary hadn't switched in Tapu Koko, that was his only out. But in the same vein, it's pretty much a cut and dry deal here. That he doesn't have to worry about that. So overall, looks like Gary's going to wrap this one up very tidily. He can Follow Me with his Smeargle in case something goes for damage. He can just protect a couple turns to try and get to that point where Tailwind's ending this end of this turn, and Tapu Koko would just be able to round it out.
Smeargle leaving the field on Gary's side and Snorlax taking its place. So Gary very smartly conserving the fake out for a later turn if he needs it. Tapu Koko protecting itself this turn. Again, Gary not trying to jump the gun, trying to just, keep his options open, ensuring that no matter what, he has his win condition on lockdown. Just a sign of a really experienced player. A lot of people might be antsy, might want to just go for the attacks in this situation, but sometimes that you can't do that.
Yeah, well, the other thing that's good about Tapu Koko in this instance is it brings a spread move in Dazzling Gleam, which means you can't just be completely stopped by the Follow Me. He's going to be able to get some damage down on Tapu Lele, now the Tailwind's ending, and of course the Smeargle just can't do enough damage. The Follow Me going to at least try, but I just can't see it being enough, if I'm honest with you.
Well, Smeargle will try to do its best, but Dazzling Gleam is a double target move, and it will get the knockout on both that Tapu Lele and the Smeargle at the same time. So Gary winning 2 games in this round 3 with 2 completely different modes of his team. That's something we haven't really seen yet today.
Yes, a player mixing it up throughout I thought was very, very wise. I love how his team came together. I think Leonardo's team was very good as well. The Smeargle, maybe not the perfect use for it though. Yes, he got the Tailwind up, but I think there's maybe more premium Tailwind setters. And with the Tapu Lele on his side, you do have to wonder if he could have looked at maybe Drifloon to set up Tailwind. That would have been an interesting option.
I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, Game 1, we did see Smeargle do what it does best on Gary's side of the field, get those evasiveness boosts, and use Follow Me to just allow his Pokemon to stay around on the field as long as possible. And, you know, sometimes when you're at the World Championships, I know that trainers will decide to play a little bit more riskier in hopes that you do get lucky in those situations. So that could just be an indication that Leonardo, you know, rather than going for a safe, consistent option like the Drifblim-Lele combination, decided, you know what? I'm at the World Championships, I'm going to risk it all and go for that Smeargle and that Moody ability.
But Smeargle's really not been a popular Pokemon this year. It's been picked up a little bit. The loss of Dark Void really hurt it, but Spore seems to be very, very good. With the prevalence of Tapu Koko, particularly towards the end of the season when I believe there was like 60% of teams had it, Spore just wasn't a valuable choice. Of course, you've also got the people who use Tapu Fini. Misty Terrain does exactly the same thing in preventing the Spore. So it just didn't seem like a premium pick, in my opinion, to try and rely on Spore. Now with people moving away from that and bringing their own terrain control, I think with this newer mechanic, people understanding a little bit better how to control the terrain with their switching, with the way they lead the play and stuff, and how they can read into their opponent, they feel there's a little more breathing room to maybe Spore, and we saw both players there. Very smart matchups in the Tapu Lele and Tapu Koko.
It's really interesting that you bring that up. I mean, Gary was the trainer who decided to bring Tapu Koko on his team, and Gary also had Spore, so it's weird because it's just one more thing he has to think about on his own team and how he manages the field. Which normally, I mean, I know a lot of trainers, if they're bringing a Pokemon like Tapu Fini, they won't bring moves like Toxic on their team because they know if I make that mistake and I use Toxic while my own terrain's up, that's just a turn lost on my side.
Yeah, you're going to look very foolish as well.
Yeah.
On top of that. But overall,
not speaking from experience on that one.
Yeah, it's never happened to me either. But you know, on that vein, I think it's better to have that terrain in your control. It means you have the power. So Gary knew when he could and couldn't Spore because he knew when the Tapu Koko was coming in. He doesn't have to make the decision like Leonardo does to guess, is the Tapu Koko coming in, will I be able to Spore this turn? He just knew right off the bat. And it's the same kind of thing, and Leonardo played it a bit differently in that he knew he couldn't fake out because he likes to lead with Tapu Lele, but he doesn't keep it as an option in case he doesn't get control of the terrain.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you it's all about team building. You know, it is about the matchup as well and how you play the matches, but I think team building, like we keep saying, is probably one of the most important things going into the World Championships. So
well, we didn't see anything from that Poliwrath. We actually saw it
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah, I wanted to see something from it.
We saw it appear, and then we didn't see any value out of it. It does have access to Swift Swim, so next to the Pelipper would have been great. The very fast Pelipper, obviously, with the Choice Scarf. But I didn't think it was necessary at all. It just didn't feel to me like it was needed in that matchup. Of course, it has the fighting type, so would answer as something like a Snorlax very well, but Leonardo didn't bring his Snorlax, and not seeing it in Game 1, maybe that's why Gary left it at home for Game 2.
Well, we'll just have to ask him ourselves. So I believe Anna is standing by with Gary, so Anna, take it away.
Thanks, guys. I am backstage here with Gary. Gary, you've brought some friends for good luck or comfort. Which one?
Both. I like Mimikyu and Zyger. They're my favorite Pokemons. That's why I brought them.
Did they help you in that last match?
Yeah, Mimikyu helped a lot. Really appreciate it.
It was a pretty convincing victory there. Tell us a little bit about how you were feeling throughout the match.
I won't say it's convincing. Like, Smeargle helped me a lot at that matchup. And Mimikyu sets up a trick when his Smeargle sets up Tailwind. It's really helpful. And I think that's why I win that match.
How did you prepare when you came into this? Because we're kind of early on in the tournament. We're seeing you do very well right now. What have we not seen all leading up to Worlds?
Okay, so I was sick last week, and I really don't have a lot of time to prepare, but I still have some time to put together a team and practice a lot with them, and they did well for me.
They sure did. And now you're moving forward in Worlds. You have lots of opponents yet to face. What kind of match are you not looking forward to, and what kind are you hoping that you'll have?
Okay, I'm really looking forward to face some Smeargle team. And because I have Tapu Koko and some Snorlax team, because I have some tools to deal with Snorlax, I don't want to face Celesteela.
And if you do, what will you do in order to come out on top anyway?
It's really hard a matchup, but I'll still try to defeat every skill I meet.
Awesome. Is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to? I know that community is huge here in Pokemon, and a lot of people have probably helped you train.
There are a lot of people I want to give shout out to. People in Seattle, our team Seattle, and the whole West Coast group, and there are too many people. And shout out to my APAC friends to practice with me, and I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, congratulations again, and best of luck as you continue to play, Gary.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. And now back to you, casters.
All right, well, congratulations to Gary doing so well with one of his favorite Pokemon, Mimikyu. It's always nice when you can bring, one of your favorite partners along with you to such a big stage.
Yeah, and I think having a personal confidence in your team is something you need, and talking about how players team build together, we've seen top players do it. Players all the way through work in teams to build something that they're confident with. There's usually one player that it meshes really well with. Gary's always found these teams that mesh very nicely for him at the last minute. He talked a little bit about being short on time. But it just comes together for him, and that's what you need to be succeeding on day one here at the Pokemon World Championships. It's something you need to go. He's 3-0 now, in a really great position, just needs 2 more wins with this team.
Yeah, well, best of luck to Gary moving forwards. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back real soon with more fun battles here at the Pokemon World Championships.
This is the closest thing that comes to being an actual Pokemon trainer. My name is Steven Morioka. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I'm here to compete in the Pokemon National Championship. So I got started in the summer of 1999, so very early on. When we first started, my whole family played the trading card game, and specifically my brother and sister and myself, we all played the video game. We each had different Pokemon versions. It was always convenient for all of us to have those starters and be able to trade with each other to get all the Pokemon. My brother, he's been extremely successful. He won the national championship in 2010. Always having to try to live up to that name is difficult. It keeps on pushing me to strive to get better and improve my gameplay, and hopefully one day I can become a national champion just like him. But it's extremely difficult, so I gotta keep working hard. We have a great community in Chicago for Pokemon, specifically for the video game side. We have a lot of players in the Chicago area, very good ones, and to get the opportunity to continually play them frequently, it's an amazing experience. When we go to larger major tournaments such as Nationals or the World Championships, you have that group that you're familiar with from your local events, and you guys are kind of a team because you're in the local area, you want to root for your friends. They're there to pick you up. Whether you're doing well or doing poorly, they've got your back. They're your friends. There's a huge deal that goes into the competitive scene, and just understanding the game and trying to continue to get better, learning all these strategic elements from your friends, from your competitors. It's been very challenging, and I think the greatest thing about Pokemon is that it's a game that can continue to challenge you no matter how much you think you know about it. The Pokemon community is great in that no matter what happens in the tournaments, you're all friends at the end of the day. You're still competitors, but you wish each other success, good fortunes in life and in Pokemon. What the Pokemon community has done for me is, helped me grow as a person and as a player, and I keep continuing to learn not just about Pokemon, but about life. You have this opportunity to compete, try and be successful, If you do, great. If not, you move on to the next tournament. You just keep preparing and train on. Regardless of the outcome, just realizing you can continue to improve yourself as a player, yourself as a person through playing Pokemon is just amazing in itself.
That's kind of where all the cool teams come out, because it's the end of the season.
It's the end of a season, and it's a completely new tournament. So unlike the international championships, which we saw take place literally all around the world throughout the year, Day 2 of the Pokemon World Championships is a brand new tournament. We have some trainers who have placed well throughout the year who got an automatic invite into that Day 2, and anybody who finishes with 2 losses today or less will move on to that tournament tomorrow, where if they want to change their team up and run something completely crazy and completely different to what they ran today, they can totally do that.
Yep, and in the past we've seen a lot of very interesting teams come out from the World Championships. Obviously 2011 Ray Rizzo's world winning team was actually a lot different than the standard Thundurus that we saw a lot of in that season. It actually became a lot bulkier, and that actually impacted all the Thundurus from that point on. That Thundurus could be a bulky Pokemon. 2012, Wolf had his Executor team that made it all the way to the finals of the World Championships as well. 2014, Sajin Park with the Pachirisu.
Of course,
right?
How could you forget that?
I believe that may be a lot of viewers' first foray into the VGC scene, watching Pachirisu take a Draco Meteor from opposing dragons.
I remember, I don't know if you were in the hall during that game, but I was sitting in the audience watching, and the crowd just went absolutely nuts. It was so much fun. There's really a lot of energy out there right now, and definitely for those of you at home as well, tweeting with that hashtag #PlayPokemon, posting on other social media sites as well. It's really just, it's so energizing to be a part of. I can't describe it. It's just so much fun, and I'm so happy to be here.
And of course, I was actually one of the first, I was one of the casters that actually got a cast the first time Sajin was put on stream with that Pachirisu too, so it was very, very exciting. One of my most memorable moments casting a World Championships, that was between Omari Travis and Sajin Park. Such a hype set. Omari also had some tricks up his sleeve. So, just seeing all these players come out with these techs that they've been, kind of looking into all season long. Of course, last year we also had 2016 World Champ Wolf Glick back here, using that team that he used with the eject button hitting on top of the Assault Vest Raichu that just had so much synergy that not many players were really using earlier on in the season.
Yeah, I know he was on stream earlier today. Did you catch that match by any chance? Because I hear it was really exciting.
I watched parts and bits of it. I was running around, just back here, just being busy. But
yeah,
it was an exciting match to watch. Unfortunate luck, but that is the game that we play. That is exactly what a lot of players have been saying in their post-game interviews.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we do have these Swiss rounds now. Even though if you do lose round one, which is really unfortunate, you have at least one more loss to sort of buffer you through the rest of the day. Yeah. So I don't think he's out of the running quite yet, along with any of the other trainers we've seen.
I talked to him in passing. He has rebounded from that loss.
That is great.
2-1.
Wow.
2-1.
All he has to do is win out, right?
Well, he can afford one more loss. One more loss. He needs to win 3 more matches. 3 more matches. Of course, Wolf Glick is one of those players that can't.
Oh, definitely. I mean, something I don't think is talked about as much, and probably, I know he's the world champion, but I think the fact that he was able to get through day 1 of Worlds last year was probably one of the biggest accomplishments. There were so many people playing that day. I believe there were, 9 rounds, maybe over 500 trainers in the Masters division. Just a lot of Pokemon, and to be able to play through that, play through day 2, and then go on to win the World Championships just goes to show you, even at 1 loss, you can't count them out.
It's always about focusing on the next game. You just take it 1 round at a time. You can't let the previous round get to you, even if you may have flinched, even though you may have missed some attacks because of maybe a Moody boost
or a Muddy Water, as we saw.
Accuracy drop. So, it's all about looking forward and just, shaking it off. Just look on towards the next one.
Definitely. I personally can't wait for our next round. We're not there quite yet. So, out of everything you've seen so far today, what do you think is your favorite in terms of teams or Pokemon or moves?
I really liked Gary's team.
Yeah.
I've been walking around. I've been looking at a lot of teams, and I believe we saw Shoma using a Lycanroc team.
Really?
Lycanroc was one of the, I think it's a core that was popular in Japan, and it's kind of translating out. I think Lycanroc has its merits. It has the Sand Rush ability, doubles its speed, and is able to outspeed the ever so popular Tapu Lele Drifloon core.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's paired with a Pokemon maybe like Gigalith that has Sandstream?
Yeah, absolutely. Gigalith is one of the more popular weather setters now, ever since it got Sandstream introduced to it as its ability. So, Gigalith is making a very strong impact in our format in this entire season.
Well, I really hope we get to see more Lycanroc moving forward. I have to admit, I did not see that one, so now I'm kind of sad I missed it. I might have to look back and, catch that little bit that we did have on stream.
Yeah, we saw Gary, he also had a very interesting team. He's a very well-known player to be using very different Pokemon, not so standard that you see. A lot of players, they opt for Tapu Koko, they opt for, Celesteela, Garchomp, Arcanine, very strong, very popularly used Pokemon, and then Gary all of a sudden comes out with Poliwrath.
Poliwrath, Mimikyu, Snorlax, Choice Scarf on the Pelipper, really just a very interestingly constructed team. I don't think you see as maybe intricate teams as much, maybe more on the world stage, but at the regionals level, I don't think people really look to build, okay, my team can use Trick Room and Snorlax here, but relies on Swim and Choice Scarf in these situations. It's just a lot of thought has to go into it, and a lot of attention has to be made when you're picking your moves. So the fact that he was able to play it so well on such a big stage, I think, is a great sign for him moving forwards.
Every time that I'm at a tournament with Gary, I always try to make sure I know what he's running, just to kind of have an idea of what he's been up to. I'm pretty sure in the Seattle Regional Championships, he came up to me and he's like, I'm running Grand Bull. I'm like, oh.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he ran Grand Bull. Last year, his breakout tournament, back in the 2016 format, he used Mewtwo. He used Mewtwo, and Mewtwo was one of the legendary Pokemon that were allowed that weren't commonly seen, but he still made all the way to the top 16 of the national championships despite using a lesser used legendary Pokemon.
I don't think he could have used 6 Mewtwo though, right?
Of course not.
I gotta go back and gotta go back and check the rules. It's been a while.
No 6 Mewtwo. That's not a legitimate team. Unfortunately. Although, I would totally run that.
I would too.
Mewtwo
I would too.
is a good Pokemon.
6 Mewtwo.
6 Mewtwo, yeah. I think that might be our favorite joke coming from that how to play video. And, you know, we hope that everybody watching can learn how to play so that you all can come out next season and compete, because it's such a joy. And even if you come out and you don't win, it's all about the friendships that you make. It's all about having fun. It's about having a great time at all these events.
Yeah, something I really liked from the beginning of last round was how Gary and Leonardo were having so much fun, like, you know, talking to each other while they were waiting to have their match set up. Sometimes you don't see that at the top tables. I think as we move on, be a little bit more on the moves.
Gente, voy a interrumpir la de retransmisión. La que ya han pasado ya que 3 horas. Así que va a ser todo por el día de hoy. Mañana vamos a decir, continuamos. Para los que están aún en sintonía, estén pendientes mañana para si desean seguir viendo. Si no, bueno, gracias a los que estuvieron y nos vemos en otra, pues. Bye.